Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku became the Emerald Dragon Part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see Part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story, 𝗵𝗃𝗲 from WhatIf. So let's start the video. It was a cold and rainy day in Musutafu. We can find many buildings destroyed in the chaos of the battle between Deku and Shigaraki. We find them standing near a home that Shigaraki noticed immediately, and they had begun to talk to one another. "I know that this is wrong for me to do, but I think you need to decay that house," Izuku said, looking at the house and sweating from the aura of it. "Why are you letting me do this?" Shigaraki asked, confused. They were in the middle of fighting before they noticed the aura of the home that Shigaraki lived in as a child. "Because I believe that it will give you peace knowing that you finally destroyed that house you grew up in, Shigaraki. Also, I hope this makes it easier for me to turn you in. I want to save you, not kill you. Everyone wants me to kill you and all for one, but you killed him and now all I need to do is kill you. But I can't bring myself to do it as Tenko the young child is still in there crying, begging to be saved by someone," Izuku said, sitting down on the bench behind himself. Unknown to everyone else, he holds his 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗲 in pain as the quirk gear shift had been hurting his heart to use constantly. He needed this breather if he was to continue to fight Shigaraki at full power. "Well, aren't you quite the hero?" Shigaraki said, walking up to the house and planting one hand on the walls of it. He stands there as a creepy smile makes its way across his face as it decays into ashes in front of himself. He then begins to think about Izuku's proposal, turning himself in so they could properly help him recover and maybe save him from himself. "Deku, do you think that I might be able to become a hero if I somehow manage to turn over a new leaf?" Shigaraki asked, trying to see if he could reclaim his dream from his childhood. "I'm not going to lie, Shigaraki. Many people wouldn't want you to be a hero, but I personally think that if you could work on changing your ways and be better than you were, you could become a hero," Deku said, staring into Shigaraki's eyes. Red eyes meet emerald, green eyes, and they stared at one another when Deku stood up and pulled 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗃 cuffs out and hands them to Shigaraki. Shigaraki stares at the cuffs and wills his quirk to suppress itself within the cuffs. Deku stares at him before stating some words of encouragement. "I will try to make sure that you get out once you turn over your leaf and start anew. I will advocate for you becoming a hero, Tenko. I will make sure." Deku said, danger sense going off as he pushes Shigaraki out of the way as a laser beam comes flying towards them both as Deku takes the attack head-on. Shigaraki looks up to find most of Class 1A standing on a building, having most likely heard everything Deku said, and 𝗬𝗵𝗲 standing there with his quirk activated. Shigaraki looks to Deku's body and finds a hole going through it, then he looks down at his own and finds a similar hole in himself. Deku stands there shocked at what happened as Shigaraki falls to the ground bleeding out, and Deku turns around to find his classmates staring at him in anger as well as joy. Deku then uses the last of his strength to charge his quirk to his utmost limit. "All Might, I'm sorry that I couldn't become the hero you wanted me to be. I'm sorry that I couldn't come home, Mom," Izuku thinks as he stares at his classmates and his quirk's power begins to overload his body to dangerous levels. "You all think that you are the ones to kill me. I am the one who does this. One for all." 10,000,000% final explosion. Video above is meant to represent Izuku exploding using his quirk to his maximum amount in order to destroy his body and Shigaraki's. The explosion that Deku creates is so large that it consumes all of Musutafu. As Izuku is inside the explosion, he watches as most of Class 1A escapes the blast radius as he says his goodbye to everything in this world. "Goodbye, Mom, All Might, and yes, even you, Shigaraki," Izuku thinks to himself as he looks down to Shigaraki's burning form from the max output of One for All. "I'm sorry that we couldn't become heroes in the future. I hope we both are reborn in another world where we are free to be ourselves without consequences," Izuku thinks as the explosion becomes too much for even his body to take. The explosion is then sent out a little further as it finally begins to wane over, and the blast radius is then reduced to nothing. The class members of 1A then run back to the epicenter of the blast zone and finds Deku still standing in the middle of it. Scared shitless, they move down into the crater and find out that his body is completely white. Izuku's eyes are completely white, as well as his eyes moves to look at them. 𝗬𝗧𝗧 stares into her friend's cold, lifeless eyes as he speaks his final words. "I thought I had real friends," Izuku said, before the wind picks up, blowing his body away into the air as most of the class stares in disbelief. She begins to cry, knowing that it was her plan all along to kill both users of the world's most dangerous quirks known to the world. "Why are you crying, round face?" Bakugo yells. "He was my friend. How could I not cry? He thought that we weren't his real friends," 𝗬𝗧𝗧 said, crying. "He was a danger to us all. He could have gotten all of us killed." Shoto Todoroki called out. "Why, yeah, but what has he done to deserve our betrayal? He has only used his power to save people, that's it." Mina Ishido calls out. "We just betrayed the only person that could stay by our side and let us vent all of our troubles to." Tsuyu said, a stray tear coming out as Tokoyami places his arm around her, as tears were coming out of his eyes as well. Izuku had taught him that he needed to use his own strength instead of relying on Dark Shadow in the past in case his quirk wasn't useful to the situation. It seemed like 𝗬𝗧𝗧, Mina, and Tsuyu were the only ones who cared about Izuku as they cried over his death and words. He was truly alone in this world without any real friends, and that hurt the most to the three individuals, with Tokoyami being neutral. Meanwhile, the spirit of Izuku Midoriya was watching the scene play out as he found remorse in 𝗬𝗧𝗧, Tsuyu, Mina, and Tokoyami, with some neutral characters staying out of it. He watches as those four cries over his death as his once best friend stomps on his ashes, laughing in joy and happiness. Soon the spirit of Izuku's soul moves on to another plane of life as his soul goes to be placed in the wheel of reincarnation. But someone notices his kind soul as well as his hurt in his heart and takes it to another universe to live again. The same is said about Shigaraki's soul. In the High School DxD universe, Great Red was watching the many other timelines of his universe as well as paying attention to the universe that was the sister to his. It had an Earth that had superpowers for 80% of the population, as well as watched as one of the only people in Japan without a superpower made his journey to become one of the best heroes out there until the betrayal of his allies and is killed by them. But oddly enough, he doesn't bear any ill will to any of them. He is truly at peace, as if he wanted to die the entire time. So, he gives his soul some peace as well as gives it a new body to serve as its vessel in order to live in his universe. He also takes the soul of his eternal enemy Shigaraki, as he saw some good in the man and made him the opposite of Izuku. Izuku would become the dragon of kindness as compassion, while Shigaraki would become the dragon of destruction as well as fury. They would be twin dragons like the heavenly dragon twins 𝗓𝗓𝗓 and Albion. But Great Red didn't think the duo would become as strong as those idiots of dragons. Those dragons may have had millions of years of wisdom as well as knowledge, but they were just mere meatheads that wanted the thrill of battle and found it in each other. Using his flesh, he made dragon bodies for the two boys entering this world, and placed their souls inside and teleported their dragon bodies in two eggs inside one of the female dragons in the dragon's territory that Tannen governs. Those two boys will become the antithesis of each other, one of kindness with compassion, and the other of fury and hate mixed in with destruction. Great Red said, flipping around the dimensional gap. "With Izuku's mind, where am I? I thought I died. Was I reincarnated? What happened to Shigaraki? Did he survive and is destroying the world?" Many thoughts were going through the young boy's mind as he couldn't see anything. It wasn't long after the fact that he could hear Shigaraki's thoughts. "DMN it, Deku, shut up." Shigaraki called out. "Why, you're here too, Shigaraki?" Izuku thought. "I guess what happened? All I remember was taking your offer of joining you and turning over a new leaf when you pushed me out of the way of a laser beam and taking it in the process. Then I died before feeling an explosion on my body." Shigaraki said. "I see. Do you know what is happening?" Izuku asked in his mind. "No, I don't know. All I know is that not 5 minutes ago I heard your thoughts, and I wanted you to shut up." Shigaraki said. "How much longer until they hatch?" A loud voice called out from their little home. "SHT. Did you hear that? Shigaraki asked. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗧𝗟𝗘. Scared, Izuku said, inside his little home shivering. Soon they both notice that once they shiver their home moves. They began to shiver more as the home begins to crack up above them, and soon some light enters their home, and they are introduced to new smells. What is going on with my smell? Izuku asked mentally. I don't know, but the same is happening to me as well. Be careful, Shigaraki called out mentally. Soon enough they exit their little home and find themselves looking at the ground that looks like it is so far away, but they place their foot down. It feels soft and the smells get them both to look to their opposite directions. They do this and find themselves looking at each other. Deku, why are you a dragon? Shigaraki called out scared. I don't know, but you are a dragon as well? Izuku replied scared. They hide behind their homes that now resembled eggs that they broke out of. Izuku, being the terrified little bean, he was climbed back into his egg and placed the roof back on top of it and hid in there. Shigaraki on the other hand got used to his new surroundings and moved to the egg Izuku was currently hiding in. He sits down next to it and waits for someone to come back to the home that he was looking at. He finds Izuku poking his adorable dragon head out of the egg, trying to find enemies that want to kill him or beat him to high hell. Deku, you are too adorable as a baby dragon, Shigaraki said, climbing on the egg and pulling the little bean out. Izuku hits the floor with a thump and scrambles to his feet before looking at his surroundings. But the thump he made caused whoever was in the house to come over and find out what was going on. They heard the loud thumping in the cave and moved behind a rock to find a giant dragon moving about and seemingly looking at the eggs before sticking their nose in the air to sniff. Are we playing hide and seek already? The weird motherly voice called out huskily. The dragon moved to their location and moved the rocks around and found Izuku hiding behind Shigaraki. Izuku's dragon form was a 6-foot-tall dragon that had brown horns coming out of his head that were small right now, and his whole body was emerald green in color. His eye color was the most alluring of him. His eyes were the same color as his body as they had slits, and he was still terrified of seeing this gigantic dragon looming over him. The dragon was standing on all fours, and she was at least 60 meters tall and 45 meters long. She was pure white as well as some green and black tints along the sides of her body. She looked down at her children with care as well as curiosity. Shigaraki was the one to move forward in protecting Izuku's smaller frame. Shigaraki's dragon form was that of pure white with black dots that were everywhere. His eyes were slitted like Izuku's, but most of all was their color. They were a pure red color that their mother hadn't seen since 𝗧𝗪𝗏 was around. Shigaraki was then seen as being at least 20 feet tall as well as having a 10-foot length as he was covering Izuku like he was the older sibling. It seems like you're protecting your little brother. I have high hopes for you, the mother said. Izuku stared at her in wonder, as well as being the curious little bean he moved over to the female dragon before looking up at her. She stared down at Izuku with love he missed from his own mother. She then reached down with her head and nuzzled his own head. A mother's love was what they both missed, as Shigaraki moved closer as well to rub his own head on her as well. Soon they hear stomps coming into the cave and see a giant purple dragon standing on his hind legs looking at them both intently. Whoa. It seems like your children have finally been born. My name is 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗧𝗏. I am the Blaze Meteor Dragon, 𝗵𝗃 called out. Izuku, being afraid of the noise, hides behind his mother as she looks at him fondly, with Shigaraki looking at him in anger. Looks like I made a mistake in surprising you, little one. I am terribly sorry for scaring you, 𝗵𝗃 said, looking at Izuku and Shigaraki. What should I name them? The mother dragon asked. Izuku, Izuku said, causing both dragons to look at him. Mine will be Tenko or Shigaraki, Shigaraki said, proudly puffing his 𝗧𝗍𝗍 out. 𝗵𝗃 then lets out a guffaw that scared the ever-living daylights out of Izuku as he hides on his mother's back. 𝗵𝗃, you're scaring the little one, the mother said. Sorry, Petunia. I was just laughing at Shigaraki's guts. You will need to bring your strength up in order to beat me, little one, 𝗵𝗃 told Shigaraki. I take that as a challenge, Shigaraki called out, pointing his scaly finger at him. Izuku was just becoming more and more scared by the second. First he is reincarnated as a dragon, now he has a dragon mother, and seemingly a dragon father that is actually here this time. What's next? The other mythological creatures of history are real. Yes, they are indeed real. 𝗵𝗃 said. Izuku looks at the giant purple dragon in confusion as 𝗵𝗃 then stated that Izuku mumbled out his thoughts and Izuku's dragon form gained a noticeable blush of embarrassment. Alright Izuku, we need to teach you and your brother how to fly. Common. Petunia said, moving out of the cave with 𝗵𝗃 following closely behind. Izuku scrambled to follow with Shigaraki not far behind him. Izuku was outside of the cave with his brother Shigaraki, and they were training together. They were getting better at using their powers, but Izuku noticed that he couldn't use one for all anymore, and for Shigaraki he noticed that he couldn't use all for one anymore as well. They were getting better at using their dragon-like bodies though, so that was swell. Izuku decided to walk around the territory as he was exploring his new home. He found more dragons like him and they were very nice to him considering the fact that he was a dragon like them. While Shigaraki was training with 𝗵𝗃, Izuku explored like a little kid at a park. He was walking around the place and found a tree with a weird fruit. He was about to check it out when Petunia arrived next to him and looked at his eyes. She noticed they were filled with curiosity. Do you want one of the dragon fruits? Petunia asked. Dragon fruit? What is that? Izuku asked. It's a fruit that is completely rare in the underworld, and it only grows here in the dragon's territory. Petunia said, giving Izuku an apple. Izuku eats the fruit and gains an expression of pure bliss as he eats the rest of the fruit in his scaly paws. Mom, is there more dragons in the world above? Are there more like us? Izuku asked. Yes, there are more dragons like us. But they have become evil dragons. The strongest one of them all is 𝗵𝗃𝗁, the Midnight King Dragon. He is as strong as 𝗧𝗪𝗏 and 𝗵𝗃𝗁 in their prime. Petunia said, walking away. How strong were 𝗧𝗪𝗏 and 𝗵𝗃𝗁? Izuku asked, scrambling to catch up. They were in the top 10 most powerful beings in the world. They were the heavenly twin dragons. They were respectively the top 5 to be specific. The only ones that were stronger than them was the dragon gods. It took the 3 factions of Christianity to defeat both of them. But the dragon gods above the heavenly dragons are called Great Red and Ophis. Petunia said. Izuku looked at her in amazement as well as awe. You sound like you met the heavenly dragons? Izuku states. I did, although they fought over who would get to mate with me. But alas, it was the blaze meteor dragon 𝗵𝗃 that was able to mate with me to give 𝗵𝗃𝗏 to you and your brother Shigaraki. Petunia said. Izuku nods his little dragon head at her, now knowing who his father and mother are. But before they continue, Izuku asks her a question. Mom, are you going to die before W become A adults? Izuku asked. What could make you think of that? Petunia asked, concerned for her baby Drake. I didn't want to tell anyone this but my soul I isn't from here. Izuku said, scared. What are you talking about, Izuku? Petunia asked, laying down next to him as he sits down in front of her with his head down in shame. I come from a world where there are superpowers given to people. And I was a hero. I was fighting villains and my own 𝗵𝗃𝗏 died due to a villain attack on my school. Izuku said, about to cry. Petunia looked at Izuku in the eyes and found tears about to come out. There was no way he was lying about this. She looked him in the eyes and asked him a question. How did your mother die exactly? She was killed by all for one's assassin 𝗧𝗪𝗍. Izuku said, crying all out now. Petunia then asked him one last question. He was your father, wasn't he? Petunia asked, receiving a nod from Izuku. He was an ally of All for One. A villain from 200 years in the past in my W world. He sent my own father to kill my 𝗵𝗃𝗏. I had to watch as my dad killed my mom in front of me. She looked so peaceful lying on the ground. They are what scare me the most. Izuku said. They were dull and lifeless? Petunia asked, receiving another nod. I won't die, not for a long time Izuku. Much less be killed by 𝗵𝗃, but I will make sure that you are okay. Petunia said, wrapping her tail around Izuku as he cried into her body. His mind was truly broken from the death of his mother in his world. He was holding this in for who knows how long. She bets not even his brother knows about this as he seemed more into destruction than anything. Not long after Izuku tells her about his world, Petunia calls over Tannen. "What do you need, Petunia?" Tannen asked. "Izuku had a talk with me, and it seems like his soul came from another world. Same goes for his brother Shigaraki. I sense fear as well as betrayal in his heart." Petunia said, as Tannen places his giant paw on Izuku's head to see his memories. As he watches all of Izuku's memories, he finds the world that Izuku came from and found his last minutes of his life in that world. He was saving Shigaraki from his own mind and insanity, as he had a danger sensation pop up in his head and pushed Shigaraki downward, but a laser beam shot through both Izuku and Shigaraki. Tannen watched as Izuku's memory shows him turning around to see what Izuku called his friends standing on top of a building watching the interaction between him and Shigaraki. And in the memory, he finds Izuku tearing up as he stumbles before stating his words of denial. Then self-destructing himself in order to not have his quirk taken by the others and used for evil deeds. He also finds his last words very heartbreaking, in him apologizing to his mentor as well as mother for not being able to be the hero they wanted him to be. He sees a bright light surrounding Izuku's body, and his body turns around to see Shigaraki lying on the ground in some kind of 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗃 that the humans use to arrest people. It seemed to block the user's power and make them more docile. He then heard Izuku apologizing to Shigaraki of all people. Considering from Izuku's memories, Shigaraki was an irredeemable man-child who only wanted destruction up until he revealed his true wishes of destroying his home filled with anger and hatred. He then hears Izuku's last words to his so-called friends. "I thought you guys were real friends, looks like I was wrong," Izuku said, as a wind takes his body and throws it into the wind. Tannen then exits the memories of Izuku's mind and states, "I saw his memories and he was telling the truth. But I didn't see him watching his mother dying." Tannen said, "Maybe it was too graphic for him to show. Maybe he didn't want to see it again." Petunia said, rubbing her head on Izuku's, soliciting a reaction out of the young Drake. A flinch. This caused both dragons to look at one another in confusion. This would have to be put off until later, but they need to help his mind before he becomes an evil dragon because of his memories. A few weeks pass by as Izuku was running about in the territory as Tannen and Izuku were training him how to use his dragon strength as well as his dragon's power. Compared to any other dragon, his compassion as well as kindness was unmatched by any other dragon. He was an enigma in the dragon community. Dragons were prideful creatures that fought for fun, but Izuku only trained to become strong enough to defend himself as well as those he would love. He never fought for the fun of it, he fought to defend others. One day Izuku was exploring the woods as he finds a bunch of demons trying to attack a young girl with drill-like frills for hair. She was blonde as well as short, she wore a pink dress with frills near her legs and she looked to be his age. "We are going to be eating good tonight, boys," one of the demons called out, attacking the girl. She launches multiple fireballs at them, causing them to scream in pain and launch multiple red blades at her legs. Once they get lodged into her legs, she falls to the ground and backs up to a tree as one of the demons gets a better idea. "Hey, how about we RPE her? She can't have children yet, so it will be fun," another demon said. But before any of them could get any closer to the girl, Izuku's dragon form appeared behind them with an angered look towards them. One of the demons noticed a presence behind himself and turned around only to see a long snout in front of himself. Looking up towards the eyes, he found emerald eyes staring into his deep blue, before getting eaten alive by the dragon. 𝗳𝗍𝗧𝗏. The demon screams, before a gulp is heard. The other demons turn around now, and they see a 15-meter-long dragon that was 10 meters long, and he was a few minutes later. The demons are crawling away from the dragon as they are crushed underneath his feet. The dragon turns to look at the girl in pink as she begins to be scared that she will be next on the chopping block. But as soon as she closes her eyes, she doesn't feel death coming for her, she feels something nudging her. She opens her eyes and finds the dragon looking at her with worry as well as looking like he was about to say something. "Are you okay?" the dragon asked. She didn't answer because of how appealing his emerald eyes were. They were an appealing mix of emerald and forest green. Not to mention it went well with his forest green body of scales, and his horns had some moss on them as if he was a dragon of the forest. "I'm okay, why?" the girl said. The dragon's face became very relieved, and its eyes looked like that of a dog happy its owner was okay. Are you lost? The dragon asked. 𝗬𝗏, I was trying to find my brother, but he left me all alone. Now I can't find my way home. The girl said. My name is Izuku, what is yours? Izuku asked. My name is 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗏𝗃, and I am of the Phoenix clan of devils. 𝗵𝗃 now said, name revealed. I can take you to the estate where the 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗃 family live, and they can take you home. Izuku said, lowering his head for her to climb on. She looks at him in fear that he will kill her, but he snorts at her, causing her to run up his nose and sit on his head. Be careful, I fly fast. Izuku said, getting up slowly. Okay, I will. 𝗵𝗃 said, grabbing onto one of his horns on his head as strong as she could. And soon enough they were in the air going towards the 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗃 estate in order to drop 𝗵𝗃 off. So, what are you doing here in the dragon's territory, 𝗵𝗃-chan? Izuku asked. 𝗵𝗃-chan. 𝗵𝗃 exclaimed with a blush. Why yeah, I am as old as you are. Izuku said, blushing a little. I was looking for my idiot brother as he was in there looking for another girl to add to his 𝗬𝗏. 𝗵𝗃 said. That's kind of disgusting of him to do. Is he really only looking for ℕ𝗏 members instead of strong people to add to his peerage? Izuku asked. Yeah, I know. I am only a part of his peerage because of the fact that I want to learn how to have my own peerage in the future. 𝗵𝗃 said. Well, we are here. Izuku said, landing in the estate. As soon as he landed, some of the people came outside, one of which being 𝗧𝗍𝗃 Lucifer. We meet again, Izuku, what happened this time? 𝗧𝗍𝗃 asked, curious. I found the little sister of 𝗧𝗏𝗃𝗃 in the dragon's territory looking for him. But she was attacked by stray devils in the process. Defended her is what I did, and I brought her here so you could take her back to her home. Izuku said, lowering his head to let 𝗵𝗃 off his head. As soon as his head was lowered to the ground, 𝗵𝗃 jumped off the head and ran over to 𝗧𝗍𝗃 and apologized for going into the private territory of 𝗵𝗏. Don't worry, I'm sure that 𝗵𝗏 wouldn't mind having some devil visitors from time to time. 𝗧𝗍𝗃 said, walking away. Thanks, Izuku. 𝗵𝗃 said, him on the cheek. Izuku blushed from the contact and flew away as he tried to get it into his weird dragon mind that they were underage and that they need to wait until they are of age to get together. Izuku's ranking in terms of power in the world: Izuku, the dragon of compassion and kindness, rank 1002 of most powerful beings in the world. Shigaraki, dragon of destruction and rage, rank 1000 of the most powerful beings in the world. Izuku was wandering around the dragon's territory looking for 𝗵𝗏 as he wanted to train himself to become powerful to protect the ones he will eventually fall in love with as well as those he loves as family. He eventually finds 𝗵𝗏 with Shigaraki training him as well. Izuku hops into the battle, causing Shigaraki to SWH targets, and they both fight in front of 𝗵𝗏, giving the old dragon some time to catch his breath. He had been under the weather for a few days now and was only training for a couple hours a day with Shigaraki whilst Izuku explored the area. It was rare for Izuku to join in on training unless he wanted to achieve something that he placed his mind onto. So, he allowed him to train with them today, and he analyzed Izuku's fighting style as a dragon. It was oddly mixed with many fighting styles that humans had made over the many years that they have been around on the earth. He was also surprised when Shigaraki had adapted to the fighting style Izuku had as well. It was almost as if they know how the other fights. And he was right, as they both dodges each other's attacks like it was nothing, as well as land hits that the other never expected, but what do you know, it worked. It was really nice to see them train together, and 𝗵𝗏 was happy that they were growing larger every day now. Shigaraki started at 20 feet tall and 23 feet long. And Izuku started at 10 feet tall and 15 feet long. Now they both were at least 100 times larger than they were a few years ago. Izuku was now 20 meters tall and 25 meters long and still growing by the day. Shigaraki was now 40 meters tall and 49 meters long, and like Izuku was still growing as well. He would rue the day when they reached his power level and surpassed him, and he would be happy for them. They are increasing their power by fighting one another as they are each other's perfect sparring partners. It was funny, one was smaller than the other but just slightly more agile than the other, while the other was more powerful but just a bit stronger than the smaller. 𝗵𝗏 could see himself in those two training to become the strongest they could be together, and he had seen their power as well as potential. Izuku had the potential to become as strong as one of the top 100 strongest beings in the world, while Shigaraki aimed higher and could become as strong as the top 10 of the strongest, maybe even reach the top 3. But enough about that. He noticed Izuku's body beginning to glow every now and then and thought something was wrong, but only really noticed it happened whenever he tried to do something to change his style of looks. And then it happened in front of everyone present. Izuku's dragon form disappeared and was replaced with a smaller human-like form that was 5 feet 5 inches and was showing decent muscles all over his body, not too big but not too small, just the right amount for a 15-year-old. It was here that Tannen had a good idea. He could ask 𝗧𝗧𝗍𝗃. He called the super devil on his magic circle and waited for the man to answer. Tannen, what do you need from me? 𝗧𝗧𝗍𝗃 asked, confused. Does your little sister still have claim on Kuo Town? Tannen asked, curiously. Yes, now what do you want to ask? 𝗧𝗧𝗍𝗃 asked, curious as well. I want to propose that she and 𝗂𝗧𝗍𝗃 share that territory with my son Izuku. He had done something that would be incredibly strong for most dragons at his age. Tannen said, what would that be? 𝗧𝗧𝗍𝗃 asked. He knew that the aura of a dragon would be the hardest thing to get at a young age, but what did Izuku do? He gained his human form whilst training with his brother Shigaraki, and I want him to go to school in the human world. He may even befriend your daughter. Tannen said, my little sister already sees Izuku as a little brother, so she would be ecstatic to see him again. I can get it arranged for him. 𝗧𝗧𝗍𝗃 said happily. Thank you, 𝗧𝗧𝗍𝗃. I will repay you further down the line. Tannen said, don't worry about paying me back. I will tell you about what is happening so Izuku can be prepared and surprise my little sister when he arrives. 𝗧𝗧𝗍𝗃 stated. Tannen gives his goodbyes, as does 𝗧𝗧𝗍𝗃, and Tannen hangs up. He walks over to Izuku and Shigaraki, calling off their training for the day, and has Izuku walk with him. I am sending you to the human world to help 𝗂𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃 protect her land in Kuo Town. I wish to merely have you watching their backs in the territory and take care of threats as well. Tannen said, looking at Izuku to see him have as stray tear in his eye. What is wrong, my son? Tannen asked. I'm just happy to be able to make some more friends. I hope I see 𝗂𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃 and 𝗂𝗧𝗏 there too. They were my best friends. Izuku said, happily smiling. Well, you will be heading out there within the end of the week. Get ready. Tannen said, smiling. Izuku ran off to grab his things as Tannen sat there thinking. Izuku is growing up faster than I thought. Maybe he will get to see some mates in the future. Who am I kidding? He is way too skittish. Tannen thought to himself. He walks away to prepare for Izuku's journey to the human world and meeting his old friends 𝗂𝗧𝗏 and 𝗂𝗧𝗏. Izuku was seen running around the 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 estate with 2 little girls as they were running from a woman with silver hair and a maid uniform. Lady 𝗵𝗃𝗃. Lady 𝗧𝗏. Stop running right this instant. I need to give you both a bath. I can't have you both sullying your images by being dirty. Never 𝗓𝗄𝗃𝗃. I want to play with Izuku-an. Same here 𝗓𝗄𝗃𝗃. I apologize for the inconvenience, but I wish to play with our dragon friend. 𝗓𝗄𝗃𝗃. I swear, you both are getting on my nerves half the time with your antics. Izuku-𝗵𝗃. Could you please let me give them a bath with you nearby or with them? Izuku, sure thing. I don't mind. I would never leave my best friends alone like that. That would go against my ideal of staying loyal to my friends no matter what happens. 𝗓𝗄𝗃𝗃, well, you all will be able to play inside the manor when your bath is done. With that said, the 4 then enter the 𝗵𝗃𝗃 home and head over to the bathroom in order to cleanse themselves of the dirt and grime they accumulated from playing outside in the garden. 𝗓𝗄𝗃𝗃 remembered the time the duo found the young dragon in their garden the first time and were blushing as he was sleeping in his dragon form near a patch of crimson tulips. It always calmed her heart that Izuku thought of the duo as his best friends as well as older siblings, as they were older than him by 2 years. After their bath, they ran through the home as 𝗧𝗧𝗃𝗃 walked into the hallway and watched with a small smile on his face. 𝗧𝗧𝗃𝗃, I never thought that Izuku would befriend 𝗂𝗧𝗏 and 𝗂𝗧𝗏 so fast after their first introduction. He must be a really behaved dragon to be able to be tamed by them so fast. 𝗓𝗄𝗃𝗃, he wasn't tamed by them. Tannen told me that he was like this since BR. 𝗧𝗧𝗃𝗃, I see. Well, I hope that he will help both of them with opening themselves up to the other high-class devils soon. They haven't wanted to talk to their peers since they have him to hang out with. He is a good influence on them with his abnormally kind behavior. 𝗵𝗃𝗲, I know, he has been very gentle with them whenever he is in his dragon form. When he first was here, he was merely 15 feet long while being 20 feet tall. 𝗧𝗜𝗧𝗟𝗘, has he met anyone else of the high-class devils? 𝗵𝗃𝗲, no, he hasn't. He has been very skittish when it comes to new people. He has been very strong to befriend because of his death from another world. 𝗧𝗠𝗧𝗏, I remember Tannen mentioning that he was from another world with superpowers, but that he died. I never knew that. He had only told me he had memories from that world. What happened? 𝗵𝗃𝗲, apparently he was in a battle with his brother there. He was a villain who went by the name of Shigaraki, and they were fighting to protect the future of his world. Not only that, but his friends of that world were watching his fight with Shigaraki, that when he was talking to Shigaraki, they thought he was betraying them and launched a laser beam through Izuku and Shigaraki. Izuku was furious in that moment of weakness that he just blew himself up to prevent his power from being taken away from his corpse, not that it could have been taken away. But he was very heartbroken as well as feeling betrayed that his love interest of that world had really planned his death for the better of their world. But he recognizes that it was done in case he ever went rogue or turned evil down the road because of the job of being a hero. But his heart would certainly be hardened but not turned away from heroism. That is just what his heart wishes to be. After hearing this, 𝗧𝗠𝗧𝗏 was angered by the betrayal of Izuku's previous friends, and when informed that the ones who regretted his death were the only ones who were against the plan in the first place cried at his death, he slowly lowered his aura of destruction. But he never forgot the words 𝗵𝗃𝗲 told him that Izuku said, before dying, I thought you were real friends, I guess I thought wrong. Present time Izuku could be seen walking around the human world inside the town of 𝗂𝗧, getting used to the area around himself. He found the town quite lovable as well as thought it would be a good territory to protect with 𝗤𝗏 and 𝗵𝗃𝗧. He wasn't against the thought of sharing the territory with either of them as long as they agreed to it when he got there. I can't wait until 𝗵𝗃𝗏 and 𝗤𝗏 see me again. It has been a few years since I have been around them. I wonder what they look like now. I know 𝗵𝗃𝗏 has long BLD red hair, and 𝗤𝗏 has short bob-cut black hair with purple eyes. But the wait is making me wonder about 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃. Izuku said, going into his famous mutter spree, scaring the locals with how he is able to speak that fast without taking a breath. After getting smacked in the face by one of the people demanding him to take a breath before he suffocates from no oxygen, he slowly but surely made his way to the school he will be attending for the next 3 years. And it made him both nervous as well as pumped up for this year. As he walked through the entrance, he was nervously shuffling about, causing some of the people to talk about him. Who's he? One girl asked. Wow, he is so adorable. Another said. 𝗵𝗏𝗃𝗲, he is getting the attention of the women. One boy called out, 𝗵𝗏𝗃𝗲. Another trio said that were giving rather lecherous looks at some of the women. But one of the best ones that made him blush from how scandalous it was the icing on the cake. I wonder if he has that attitude in bed. One of the girls said. With this, Izuku was a beacon of red blush on his face as the girls cooed at his skittish behavior. As the girls of the school squealed in delight at his embarrassment, it gained the attention of 2 women of the school, 𝗬𝗏 as well as 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗏 Shinra, the respective student council president and vice president of the student council club. As Izuku was walking towards the principal's office, he was warned by some of the students that he should be wary of her, mainly because of her preference of children like him. He brushed it off as them trying to scare him off from getting information about his classes from her. Once entering the principal's office, he sat down in the chair closest to the door, feeling extremely nervous after seeing the principal. Well, what is your name, little one? The principal asked sultry. I Izuku 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗏. Izuku said, as he watched the woman audibly scaring him immensely. I just love the skittish boys of this school. And yes, your classes will be Class 1A with Mr. Nakamura, 1F with Mrs. Toshiki, 1H with Mr. 𝗂𝗧𝗏, 1D with Mrs. Jenner, and finally you will need to choose a club to join at the end of the day. The principal said, still speaking sultry towards him. Thank you, ma'am. IW will be on my way then. Izuku said, running away from the room, blushing a storm. I love whenever they run away like that. I wonder when a man will love me for me though. The principal asked to no one in particular. Izuku made his way over to Class 1A as that classroom was his homeroom for the morning. As he made it there, he heard that they were already doing roll call and made his presence known by knocking on the door. Asterisk knock knock. Asterisk _𝗵𝗃. I guess the new student is here. Everyone please be kind to this young fellow, he is very skittish so don't scare him alright. Now you can come in. The teacher said, smiling at the door, as it opened slowly as well as a head of green hair popped in looking at the students fearfully. Entering the classroom with a little more confidence, Izuku wrote his name on the chalkboard and turned around to face his classmates. And nice to meet you. I am 𝗳𝗍𝗧𝗏 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏. Please take care of me. Izuku stuttered out, bowing. 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗟𝗘. The girls called out, scaring the boy to hide in the podium. The boys looked on in amusement as well as laughed at his reaction to the girls squealing about his adorable behavior. Alright class, calm down, you can each ask one question. The teacher said, calmly getting Izuku out of the podium. Izuku points at the girl with white hair and a cat hair clip in her hair. Where are you from? Also, are you a pervert? The girl asked bluntly. I am from a small town in northern Japan. I can't remember the name. As for your second question, I don't know how to answer that. Izuku stuttered out, looking at the ground. He remembered going out on a date with Uraraka, and it turned out that they had went nearly all the way had it not been for his mother entering his room to find him with a condom on and nearly entering her. Afterwards he just didn't have it in him to continue with going all the way, certainly dropped the mood he had. Thanks. The girl said, as Izuku pointed at another girl. Are you single? A girl with tan-colored hair asked. Whyways? Izuku squeaked. The girls gained nosebleeds from his cinnamon roll behavior and vowed secretly to protect him at all costs. The day continued the same way. Ironically, as he was asked the same questions by different people as he got to lunch, he went outside with his lunch made for him by his new mother. It was his favorite food by far as it was katsudon. He had shown Petunia how to make it and to her surprise it was Izuku's favorite. Izuku sat near a garden that had red tulips as he relaxed in the area, thinking that it was his secret spot and that no one could find him here. He was wrong as the white-haired girl from his first class that day had arrived in the area and found him napping away in complete peace. She came next to him and sat down using his back as a table as it was both soft and strong enough to hold her food. She was using him as a table and was enjoying it very much as he was out cold. It wasn't until after a while that she felt tired and decided to nap next to him curled up in a ball next to his 𝗧𝗓 taking in the heat he was producing. During the time she had started eating to finished eating, Izuku had rolled in his sleep indicating a nightmare was happening, and she took her bento off of him and laid him on his side and found his face scrunched up, seemingly feeling pain. She curled up into a ball and laid into his 𝗧𝗓 as she was about to fall asleep when she felt him curl up a little bit to protect her. Soon after passing out, Izuku was found curled up with the white-haired girl, and people who found them took pictures of the school's cinnamon roll and the school mascot sleeping next to one another. After waking up due to clicks of phones and cameras, Izuku woke up and in a very adorable way he rubbed his left eye with his right hand and yawned, causing many girls to get nosebleeds. He looked around and found the white-haired girl sleeping next to him, and he took it upon himself to wake her up. So, he started poking her cheek softly in order to wake her up. It worked as she slowly woke up to find Izuku crouched next to her with a face that showed compassion as well as worry. Sorry for waking you up, but class is about to start, Izuku said, offering a hand to help her up. She takes it and looks him in the eye before asking, Did you touch me at all? No. I just poked your cheek. I didn't do anything else. Izuku said, blushing. Good, because I would have kicked you to Kingdom Come. Anyway, my name is Kaneko. Nice to meet you. Kaneko said, walking away, Izuku following. In another area we find a red-haired girl looking at the interaction of Kaneko and Izuku. Akino, what is that boy's name? She asked. His name is Izuku Midoriya, and from what I know he is from a northern town. He doesn't recall the name of it though. Akino said. Well, what about the boy with brown hair in between the two other perverts? The girl asked. His name is Issei Hayadu. He is our junior as well as hated by the women of the school because of his perversion. Is he important to you? Akino asked. He might have the power to save me from my marriage. The red-haired girl said. We head back to Izuku as he exited his class with Kaneko as they headed over to the student council room in order to say hello to 𝗬𝗪. Kaneko was surprised that Izuku knew 𝗬𝗪 but didn't say anything, and wanted to see how he knew the student council president. They arrive at the room when Izuku knocks on the door. "Come in," said a voice familiar to Izuku. "Hey 𝗬𝗪. It's been a few years, remember me?" Izuku said, entering the room. 𝗬𝗪 looked at Izuku for a long few moments before comparing him to a young boy she met as a child and noticed that the freckles on his cheeks were the same as when they were kids. "It's been a long time, Izuku. How was your training?" 𝗬𝗪 asked, hugging the boy, surprising the rest of the people in the room. Her peers were looking at her as if she grew a second head as Kaneko was watching the whole thing as if she didn't care, but her eyes were surprised. "How do you know him, Kaicho?" a brown-haired boy asked, confused. "Izuku, introduce yourself to my peerage and Kaneko," 𝗬𝗪 said. "My name is Izuku, and I am the son of Dragon King Tanin as well as his wife 𝗵𝘃𝗲𝗄 son. I am a full-blooded dragon that is as strong as most high-class devils." Izuku finished with a smile. "Why, you're as strong as Kaicho?" the brown-haired boy from a moment before exclaimed. "Not exactly as strong, stronger," Izuku said, proudly, his dragon's pride getting shown on full display. "Don't get cocky, Izuku, you still haven't beaten me at chess yet," 𝗬𝗪 said. "Hey, I am still learning," Izuku pouted. "This boy is a dragon?" the boy asked. "Yes, what is your name?" Izuku asked. "Sorry for not introducing myself. My name is 𝗧𝗵𝗄 𝗵𝗃, nice to meet you, Izuku," the now-named 𝗧𝗵𝗄 exclaimed. Izuku shook his hand, and he noticed the draconic aura surrounding him as he mumbled 𝗲𝗏. "You know who my sacred gear is from?" 𝗧𝗵𝗄 asked incredulously. "I knew him from my dad. He had fought the guy many times. Only for my dad to defeat him many times before 𝗲𝗏 gave up on trying to beat him." Izuku said. "Well, you're not here on friendly business, so why are you here, Izuku?" 𝗬𝗪 asked him, knowing full well that this wasn't fully a reunion. "𝗬𝗪 didn't tell you?" Izuku asked. "What are you talking about?" 𝗬𝗪 asked, curious. "Your sister, Ria's brother, and my dad said that with your permission I could share your territory of Kuo town." Izuku was walking to the school with Kaneko as they had gotten close the day prior. He was loving her company as he could tell that she was similar to a cat in terms of smell and presence. Meanwhile, Kaneko was trying to decide whether or not Izuku was a threat, but as she kept sensing his power as well as energy, she kept only finding a compassionate energy as well as presence. Then she felt something on her head as she looked up and found Izuku petting her head softly as he was looking at her with a sad smile. "Hey, are you okay, Kaneko-chan?" Izuku asked. "I'm fine, but could you stop petting me like a cat?" Kaneko asked bluntly. Sorry about that. Your presence reminds me of a cat," Izuku said, looking away, blushing, not noticing Kaneko looking at him in fear. "Well, we better get going. We don't want to be late," Izuku said, walking faster to the school. "I better tell 𝗵𝘃𝗀 about him." Kaneko thinks to herself. Time skip. Izuku and Kaneko make it through the school gates. As they enter the school courtyard, they are met with the sound of 3 boys screaming for help. Izuku looks in their direction and walks over to them as he was genuinely curious about their antics and wanted to make sure that they are safe. Call him an idiot, but he still has the mind of a hero still in his head to defend others no matter who they are. "I think we lost them," one of the boys said. "I can't believe I got to see Murayama's melons," another said. "I prefer to watch K-Taste as well as the other girls that have little to no melons, but they were appealing," the third one said. Izuku arrived to hear the last of that and moved behind them and erased his presence, and the only one who noticed his erased presence was the one who seemed to be the leader of the trio as he turned around to face Izuku. "Hey there," Izuku said, hearing the girls and some boys throwing insults at the boy and their trio. "Don't go over to them, Izuku. They're the perverted trio. They'll infect you with their perversion," they all said. "So, what are your names?" Izuku asked, curious. "My name is Issei. This is Motohama with the bald head and Matsuda is the one with the glasses," Issei said, staring at Izuku. "Oh, well, could you keep your perversion in check at least a little bit, Issei? I don't want you guys to get kicked out of the school for it," Izuku asked, genuinely worried. "Why are you asking us this?" Issei asked, curious. "Well, I want to make sure that you can at least have a future where you can actually not be looked like a lustful monster that people have to hide from," Izuku said, looking away, scratching his cheek. Issei nodded his head as if understanding him, and he looked to his friends, and they just shook their heads as if not wanting to stop. "I guess I can try to lower my perversion for the girls, but I can't say the same for the brothers," Issei said, surprisingly chill. "Well, that's all, Issei, you should watch your back. They may be your friends now, but eventually some friends will betray you. I know this because it happened to me," Izuku said, trying to bring Issei from his path of lust as well as perversion. Issei nodded his head as Izuku walked away from him, and the other people looked at him as if Issei grew a second head. Did 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 just say that he will try to stop being an open pervert? One of the girls asked. "I don't trust them, he could still do it." Another said, "Lear." Izuku could be seen sleeping in the garden patch again as he had finished his lunch again alone. He was having a dream about his past life as Izuku Midoriya, otherwise known as the hero hopeful Deku. He was in the middle of fighting his old enemy Shigaraki, and they were blowing up buildings as well as landing blows that were lethal to the other. They reached the home that belonged to Izuku when another person showed up at the location, 𝗵𝗃𝗏. He had arrived stating that he killed his friends as well as teachers and higher-ranked heroes in order to come here. But before he could continue, Izuku flew towards the man using float from Nana Shimura and used Black WHP to attack the man without letting him get a chance to think. The man had some kind of energy coming off him as it was similar to Eri-chan's quirk of rewind. Izuku managed to kick him away from his home, and in the distance Izuku could have sworn that he saw some of the hero students of his class coming his direction. He focused his attention to 𝗵𝗃𝗏 and Shigaraki, but mainly focused on 𝗵𝗃𝗏 as he was more dangerous than Shigaraki. Izuku battled the duo for many hours when 𝗵𝗃𝗏 decided to attack Shigaraki out of nowhere, confusing the young hero and Shigaraki. "Why are you attacking me, sensei?" Shigaraki asked, confused. "I am taking over your body now, Tamura. You were supposed to be my vessel in order to become the ultimate demon lord," 𝗵𝗃𝗏 said, then looked to Izuku, who looked more on edge. "You are going to help me, son?" 𝗵𝗃𝗏 said, staring into Izuku's eyes. Izuku was stunned by what 𝗵𝗃𝗏 said. "I am the son of the greatest villain in all time." Izuku screamed into his head. But before they could continue, his mother exited his home, alerting Izuku to her presence on the battlefield. Get out of here. There are villains here." Izuku screams, getting her attention. But out of the corner of his eyes he finds 𝗵𝗃𝗏 pulling his arms back to attack her, and as he flies down to defend his mother, she looks at him with a sad smile as he is engulfed in a large explosion. "𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏!" Izuku screamed, flying towards the explosion radius. As he lands, he finds his mother lying on the ground, her body gone, just her head remained on the ground, staring into his eyes with her sad smile on her face. As she was slowly losing color in her eyes, she spoke to him. "Don't cry for me, Izuku. Just keep your smile," she said, losing all color in her eyes. Izuku stared at her head and fell to his knees as tears streamed down his cheeks. His pupils dilated as they were trembling with shock, fear, loneliness, as well as rage. He turns to his supposed father, and his eyes are the most rageful that Shigaraki had ever seen. He stared at 𝗵𝗃𝗏 and stated only 2 words, "You're dead." Izuku mumbled, flying towards the demon lord and attacking him so fast that neither Shigaraki nor 𝗵𝗃𝗏 could even see him, and Izuku kept disappearing and reappearing all over the place and managed to slam his fist into his face, disforming it again, but it just reformed because of Ares' blood coursing through his veins. This continued until Shigaraki entered the fray and started to help Izuku defeat 𝗵𝗃𝗏, but 𝗵𝗃𝗏 had experience as he was trying to counter both but couldn't keep this up, and as soon as Izuku attacked 𝗵𝗃𝗏 for the last time, his mother's face flashed into his eyes, forcing his body to wake up. Izuku woke up breathing heavily, only to find his eyes looking up towards one girl's face that he remembered from his childhood. 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏. Ries POV, 10 minutes earlier. I was walking through the school when I got some information from Kaneko-chan about the new student in the school. She said that she felt a draconic presence in him. I was determined to get him into my peerage to help me get out of this marriage agreement that my family placed me in to get a new baby with the 𝗣𝗲𝗍𝗪's destructive power mixed with the power of the immortal phoenix. But as I made it to Kaneko, I found her breathing heavily as if she was in fear of something. "What's wrong, Kaneko?" I yell, gaining her attention. "Izuku-san has an aura of death and fear. I don't remember where he could be," Kaneko said as I run off to find my kohai. I ran all over the school and finally found him in a garden of small red tulips as well as blue spider lilies. I ran over to find him shaking in his sleep, and his aura was definitely of that of a pure dragon. But what was he doing here? Was this his territory? I don't care, I need to calm him down before he hurts anyone else. I sit down and lay his head on my lap, and I begin to hear him mumble something. All for one. While you're dead. Izuku mumbled in his sleep. I don't know why I began doing this, but I started to move my fingers through his surprisingly soft hair, and he slowly but surely began to calm down. As soon as a couple of minutes passed, he woke up breathing heavily. "Ga." Izuku breathed in. We sat there for a minute or two and he stared into my eyes, and when I saw his emerald, green eyes, I was reminded of a young drake I met as a kid. "When I grow old enough, I want to be your friend and defend you," a young drake with green fluffy hair said, proudly. "I look forward to you coming to my rescue, best friend," a younger me said. Izuku looked me in the eye and then he smiled happily as he seemingly knows me. "Rias. It's been years," Izuku said, hugging me, which I was stunned. "He knows me." I thought to myself. Do I know you?" I ask him, only to receive an adorable pout from him. "I can't believe you can't remember me from the underworld," Izuku said, and as soon as he said underworld it all clicked. The draconic aura, the fluffy hair, the emerald eyes. It was Izuku, and he was old enough to be at school with me and Sona. "What took you so long to get here, Izuku?" I yell in excitement. "You need to remember that I was only a couple years old when you first met me, Rias-chan," Izuku said. "Well, I need to have you meet my peerage mates," I speak. "If you are thinking about having me as your peerage member, I am too strong for you to reincarnate. But there is a certain red dragon emperor in the school you can reincarnate," Izuku tells me. "His name is Issei Hayudu, and he is a pervert. But he is trying to better himself in terms of perversion. At least he told me he would, but I know that it will take a while." Izuku told me, and I nodded my head. RDPOV. "Well, everyone, this is my old friend from childhood, Izuku. He is the son of Dragon King Tanin and his wife Petunia." Rias tells her peerage. "Hello," Izuku said, smiling. Kaneko walked up to him and sat next to him on the couch. Izuku looked at her and started to pet her head. "Wow, nobody has ever been able to do that to Kaneko without her punching them," Rias said, bewildered. "Well, I kind of see her as a little sister because of her looks. Also, I've always wanted a little sister," Izuku said. "So, what are you doing here, Izuku?" Rias asked, getting to the point. "𝗧𝗪𝗃 and Tanin said that I would be sharing the territory with you and Sona, as long as you both agree to it," Izuku said, smiling nervously. "Well, we could use the help around here, and having a literal dragon here would be more than good enough to scare the fallen as well as stray devils from this area," Rias said, accepting the offer. "Thanks for allowing it, Rias," Izuku said. "Well, I guess I will see you all tomorrow," Izuku said, walking away. "See you tomorrow, Izuku," Rias said. Izuku waved his hand behind as he left through the doors as Rias made plans to make sure that Issei becomes her servant. Izuku was walking around the building of the main school as he was awoken by Murayama yelling at Hayudu for peeping on her once again. Izuku sighed as he knew Issei was trying to hold back his perversion, but this was ridiculous. Izuku walked over to the perverted boy as he slapped him upside the head, causing the boy to rub his head as he turned only to see Izuku standing there giving him a look of disappointment. "Issei, what have I told you?" Izuku asked, confusing Murayama. "What are you talking about, Izuku?" Murayama asked. "I told him to reel in his perversion a few days ago as he was caught peeping on you. But it seems like he can't keep his eyes off of the other girls," Izuku said sadly. "I'm sorry, Izuku. I will try harder tomorrow," Issei said, walking away feeling guilty. So, 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗄, would you show me around the school today? Izuku asked, blushing. Sure, Izuku. I would love to. 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗄 said, trying to wrap her head over Izuku, trying to beat the pervert out of Issei. They would walk all around the school with 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗄 telling him about how the school works as well as making sure that she doesn't lose him as he looked at the people in the school with a faraway look in his eyes. Are you okay, Izuku? 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗄 asked, concerned. Just remembering the memories I've had from my childhood. I've never had any friends growing up. Everyone always bullied me because of something I couldn't control. Izuku said, looking at the sky in remembrance. Years ago, in 𝗵𝗃𝗃 universe flashbacks, I have always wanted to be a hero, but everyone had just left me behind and wished for my death. Izuku said, as he walked around a path that led to him meeting All Might. For everything that I have done, I need to be there to show that I am still here. All Might says, looking to 𝗧𝗍𝗍. I always wanted to be acknowledged by someone that could just believe in me so I could continue this dream of being a hero without a quirk. But there were more people telling me to just give up and try to live a normal life. But I couldn't. No person would want a quirkless person as one of their employees. But even then, there was no way to be recognized by anyone as they would always underestimate my ability to analyze quirks of others. If there was anyone who could tell me this, it would be you, All Might. Do you think that I could become a hero while just analyzing quirks as well as being quirkless? Izuku asked All Might. Without power. If it should be up to me, I would say that you should shoot for the stars. But since I have this injury on myself, I would have to say that I couldn't bear to live with myself if I told someone with no power to go out and fight a villain that I couldn't. It would make me feel guilty as well as feel horrible for sending someone like you to take on a villain without a quirk. So, to answer your question, young man, I would think not. All Might said, walking towards a door. Oh, okay. Izuku said, looking at the floor, tears coming from his eyes. It's alright to dream, kid, just make sure that it is achievable and not impossible. I hope to see you rooting for me in the future. All Might said, walking away. Flashback over, we find Izuku staring at 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗄 with a stray tear in his eye as he tells her about the world he came from. She had stood there listening to his story from his past of how his story as a hero in that world had began in that one moment. Did you manage to become a hero? 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗄 asked. I became what was known as a provisional hero, a hero that fights when other heroes give the permission to use our quirks. But no, I wasn't a hero in my world. I was relied on because of the power I held from my 𝗵𝗃𝗃 in that world one for all. I had gained the power of the number one hero of that world because of the fact that I impressed him with my selfless attitude. Izuku said, tears now coming out in bulk as he absently wiped them away. Wow, how did you come here then? 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗄 asked. I was reborn as a creature that was once thought to be extinct or mythical. I was reborn as a dragon, and when reborn into this world I was scared and frightened of everything as I thought the world around me was going to do the same thing to me back in my old world. I even came here with a man who was very wrong in what he did. He killed many people, all for the fact that he wanted to strike back against the world that allowed people like him to appear. Izuku said, staring at the sky again. What happened to you? 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗄 asked. I died, before I could even become a fully fledged hero. Because my old friends from that world turned on me. My best friend thought that I would be a threat to his life, that he had someone attack me when I was at my weakest state. I was about to turn Shigaraki into the police when I was impaled by a stray laser that pierced through me and Shigaraki. He died instantly because I had some cuffs on him that stopped his quirk from working. And as I turned around, I noticed them on a rooftop and found that they weren't like I thought they were. I thought it was a pure facade of their friendship with me. There was only one thought going through my mind at that moment. Izuku said, pausing, looking into the sky with tears coming out. What was the thought? 𝗵𝗃𝗻𝗄 asked, tears threatening to come out. I thought about how my mother and All Might thought about me. I was so close to saving Shigaraki and his life slipped out of my hands. I couldn't save him, and I was forced to destroy my body to make sure that they don't take a piece of my hair to give my quirk to someone else. All Might was killed by All for One, the antithesis of One for All, as they rewound into inexistence. All for One survived long enough to plant his memories into Shigaraki and tried to take over his mind once again, as he managed to take over for a few seconds. But in the end he failed to control Shigaraki as he dusted his emissary in his mindscape. It was a few days earlier that my mother was killed by my father, 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏. As it turned out, my father was an informant of 𝗵𝘃𝗃 and used my mother's death to bring me out, and it did. I killed my own father because he didn't care about me or my mother. When she died, she told me to shoot for the stars and save as many people as possible to become the hero I had always wanted to be. But I couldn't even do that. So, I will become a hero here and save as many people as possible here, starting with 𝗧𝗍. He is completely confused about what to think about. He focused on your bodies because of the fact that nobody would ever love him, so he used that as a way to hide his real feelings. But if anything, I wish to become the strongest dragon in the world next to 𝗳𝗏 and Great Red. Izuku said, looking determined. Well, that was everything. He looked at Murayama's face and it told her that he should be broken mentally but is still fighting to make his dream a reality. So, is there anything else you want to say? Murayama asked. 𝗬𝗏𝗍𝗏 have wanted to ask you out. Izuku mumbled. Sure, I don't mind. Murayama said. Days later, after Izuku asked out Murayama, Izuku waited in the city as he wore a greenish-blue t-shirt that had the word shirt on it as well as wore a pair that had the word shorts on them as well. He was told many times that his style of fashion was horrifyingly bad from his mother as well as his friends. His girlfriend Ochako told him that as well, but he was focused on what Murayama would be wearing to this date as he shifted from boot to boot. He wore his famous red high-top boots. As he waited for Murayama, he noticed that everyone was watching him and laughing at his fashion sense. Izuku chuckled at them laughing at his style, but he knows that the clothes he wears are incredibly rare in this world. But before he could delve into more of his thoughts, he found Murayama running to him in a yellowish-red sundress with brown boots with her cleavage showing as his face became red as he looked away. Sorry for the wait. I tried to wear something good, and my CST was too big. Murayama apologized. Well, it's fine really. Let's begin the date. Izuku said, grabbing her arm with his. They walked all around the city eating food at the food court in the mall, getting some clothes for Murayama as she had told him that she wanted some new clothes, as well as watching a new movie called 𝗵𝘃𝗃 from Hell. It was a really funny movie as it had many jump scares that caused both teens to jump into the other arms as they screeched quietly, from fear. It was nearing the end of the date as Izuku and Murayama walked into the park as they noticed someone that was very strangely not supposed to be there. Hours earlier 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗍 I was walking with Yuma as we entered a store and I made sure to get her a gift. It was a small hair tie that wrapped around her wrist. It wasn't anything really, I just wanted to buy her something as she made me happy. For once I wouldn't be able to be alone in this world as my family have already given up on me getting married to a woman. We went to more places where we got some ice cream and Yuma had dropped some of her ice cream into her tea and I looked away respectfully. We went to the arcade and I got her a stuffed animal as well because one can't have too many gifts, right? I only wanted her to stay with me so I did anything I could to keep her. But as we went to the park at sunset I noticed that Yuma was acting strangely as she wouldn't look at me but kept looking at her wrist as if she was looking at the time. I guess she wanted to go home. Hey 𝗧𝗍, could you do something for me to cement the date perfectly? Yuma asked me. Yuma looked like a black-haired woman with large melons as she had the most appealing violet-colored eyes as she asked me something that I thought she was joking about. Would you die for me? Yuma asked, with me looking at her confused. Could you repeat that for me, Yuma? I think I misheard you. I asked, scratching my ear. Of course, could you die for me? Yuma said as she transformed into an outfit that really left nothing to the mind to see. Even my nose was bleeding from seeing her melons. What the hell? Ayol. She has wings. I thought to myself. RD-POV Izuku's location. Izuku and Murayama look on in horror as 𝗧𝗍 was looking at something that Murayama was not able to see. Izuku then told Murayama to run home as he will make sure 𝗧𝗍 is alright. As Izuku ran over to the boy on the ground, he saw what was making 𝗧𝗍 shake in fear from the sight. It was a fallen angel, and she had prepared a light spear in order to kill 𝗧𝗍. Izuku didn't know what was said, but he knew that he needed to make sure that 𝗧𝗍 survived to live another day. Even he wouldn't wish death upon the hopeless pervert. So, He ran without his mind, catching up to save the ironically perverted boy from death itself in the form of a fallen angel. Previously on Izuku, the Emerald Dragon of Kindness and Compassion, Izuku was walking towards a park with Murayama as his date with her was nearing its end, and they noticed that Issei is in the same park as they were heading over to. Izuku tells Murayama to leave the area as soon as possible, and heads over to save Issei from being killed by the fallen angel Rainer. Izuku was nearing the center of the park when he hears Rainer ask Issei a question. "Say, would you die for me?" She asked condescendingly. "I'm sorry, Yuma, could you repeat that please? I don't think I heard you right." Issei asked confused. "All right, Issei, would you die for me?" Rainer asked condescendingly whilst transforming into her fallen form. What the hell is happening? Issei yells. Izuku was running as fast as he could to get to Issei's location as he noticed the transformation of Rainer. SHT. He's going to be killed by her. Izuku screams in his mind. He makes it behind Issei as he manages to turn around to run away, and Izuku pulls him out of the way of the light spear that Yuma had made in order to kill Issei. "Who dares?" Yuma called out in anger. "Just something more powerful than you, fallen crow." Izuku growls. Issei watches on as Izuku was slowly transforming into a beast that he thought was a mere legend as well as a myth. He watched Izuku transform into a dragon, and it was as appealing as he thought the dragons could be. Emerald green scales that were glistening in the moonlight as Yuma stared on in disbelief. What is a dragon doing here? I thought all of you were in the underworld." Yuma called out in fear. "You do not belong here, Crow. I will not allow you to kill this young man." Izuku called out in his draconic voice. "He is a danger to my faction. He will destroy us all." Yuma called out. "He is not a danger to your faction. He is a mere child that doesn't know about the supernatural. So, killing him is the answer. Does Azazel even know about your decision?" Izuku's draconic voice questions. Yuma doesn't answer as Izuku recognizes that she didn't tell him her plans of killing the boy. The dragon makes its move as it moves closer to Issei as the boy is now lost in terms of what the hell is even going on. What the hell is even going on? What the hell is a dragon even doing alive? I thought they didn't even exist. Issei screams, in confusion. "I need that human to die. He will get in the way of my plans." Yuma called out, launching another light spear at Issei, only for it to break on the wing of Izuku's dragon form. Yuma called out in disbelief. "I can see that you will not stop coming after the boy, so I will have to kill you, Rainer of the fallen faction?" Izuku's draconic voice said, staring at her now. "No. I will not die." Rainer cries out, flying away from the area. But that was until she felt a barrier in the area preventing her from escape. "Prominence moya sudabanai." Izuku's draconic voice called out, blasting a full-force magma breath towards Rainer. "No. Nananananano. Aowiwa." Rainer cries out, dying in the blast. Issei is left stunned as to the power of Izuku's dragon form as Rainer was burning away from the existence of the world. But unknown to Izuku, Rainer managed to create a light spear and launched it towards Issei as he was too distracted to notice the spear coming for him. "Yeah. You got this, Izuku." Issei grunted in pain. Izuku's dragon form finished killing Rainer as he turns towards Issei to see a spear through his gut. SHT. Izuku screams in his head. He exits his dragon form as he runs to Issei's side. "Sit. Hold on, buddy. Hold on." Izuku called out to the boy, who was slowly losing consciousness. Izuku was trying to heal the wound that Issei had as his power was slowly going into the young, perverted boy. "Izuku, why are you helping me?" Issei asked, grunting in pain. "I needed you to be calm, Issei. I need you to stay with me. Save your strength." Izuku said, using his aura to heal Issei's wound. As soon as it was almost healed, a voice came out of Issei's left arm as it jump-scared Izuku. "So, this is my host. I am honestly disappointed in his low power. But it can be changed over time." A powerful voice called out. "Drake?" Izuku asked in fear as well as awe. "I see someone remembers me. I am glad I wasn't reincarnated as a devil this time." Drake called out. What are you doing in 𝗧𝗍's body? Izuku asked, confused. I am a soul inside a sacred gear inside the boy. I was merely woken up by you placing your aura into his body. How did you get your aura anyway? 𝗧𝗓𝗧 asked. I got my aura from training with Tanin, Izuku said, looking away. Well, thank you for helping my new host. With your aura inside his body, that will help him in transforming into a hybrid dragon and human. 𝗧𝗓𝗧 said, getting ready to sleep. So, 𝗧𝗧𝗧, are you helping him attain his dream of being a 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃? Izuku asked teasingly. My host is a hopeless pervert. God damn it. 𝗧𝗓𝗧 complained. Hey, I won't call you the 𝗵𝗃 dragon, Izuku said, looking at the gear teasingly. The only thing he got from the dragon gear was a groan as he went to sleep after using some of the energy gained from Izuku and transforming 𝗧𝗍 into a hybrid dragon, only being 50% dragon 50% human. Izuku brought 𝗧𝗍 back to his home as he knocked on the door. What happened to 𝗧𝗍? 𝗧𝗍's mother worriedly asked. I found him sleeping in the park, his date left him all alone. Izuku said. I knew that woman was only using him for and giggles. Thank you, young man. The woman said. No worries, Mrs. Hyde, I was only doing what was right. Izuku said, leaving the unconscious 𝗧𝗍 in 𝗧𝗍's room. As Izuku leaves the room, he calls Murayama and tells her that they can have another date on another day, as she agrees with him as she heads to bed for the night. All right, now to call 𝗧𝗧. I just hope she doesn't change him when he is asleep. Izuku said, calling 𝗧𝗧. This is 𝗧𝗵𝗃. How can I help? 𝗧𝗧 asked through the magic circle. 𝗧𝗧, it's me, Izuku. I need you to talk to 𝗧𝗍 at school tomorrow. He was attacked and nearly killed by a fallen angel yesterday. I saved him from her, and he is now safe in his room right now. He has the boosted gear and will be a great piece for you. I want you to change him if he wanted to be changed into a devil, but at the same time don't do it when he is asleep. Izuku said, waiting for a reply. I see, thanks for the help, Izuku. I really appreciate it. I will see him at school tomorrow. I assume you will help train him to be strong. 𝗧𝗍 asked. I will, that is if he wants to train. Izuku said, earning a hum from 𝗧𝗍. Well, I will let you go to bed, Izuku. I will deal with this generation's security. 𝗧𝗍 said, ending the call. I saved 𝗧𝗍, but at the same time he couldn't keep his humanity in the end. He still has 50% human BLD inside himself, but that will be changed if he accepts 𝗧𝗍's proposal to become a part of her peerage. I hope she allows him some time to become one instead of forcing it upon him. It should be his choice, and his choice alone if he wishes to be reincarnated as a devil. Izuku thinks to himself as he heads to his home. As he walks through the night, he finds Kaneko walking from a store with a lot of snacks. She really loves eating those snacks, doesn't she? Izuku asked himself. Chuckling to himself, he heads home in order to get some rest and head to school in the morning to see how this works. Hours later, Izuku was walking towards the school when he runs into Murayama. Hey Izuku, how are you today? Murayama asked. I am fine, did you make it home safely? Izuku replied. I did, so how did it go with Hyudu? Murayama asked, curiously. He was stood up on his date and was really in the dumps of his mood. I told him that there was plenty of fish in the sea for him as he merely passed out from being stood up. I feel bad for him. Izuku said, lying to Murayama. She nods her head as she noticed Izuku was lying and was basically telling her to drop the subject. They entered the school with their arms linked and Murayama headed to the kendo club room in order to get her training up for the day. As she was moving away, she knew that Izuku was a sort of closet pervert as she swayed her but for him to stare at. As she felt his stare on her, she knew her plan worked. She knew that he loved her completely, but she wanted to give him a little treat to look at as she walked away. With Izuku, he didn't know what to say, as he watched Murayama walk away with a sway in her hips catching his eye. Realizing what he was doing, he was shaking his head in embarrassment as he never did that to anyone before. I really am a closet pervert, Izuku thought to himself, unknowingly mumbling it just out of earshot of most of the students present in the courtyard. Sona made her way over to Izuku as she asked him of what happened the night prior as she sensed his draconic presence in the city as he merely told her about 𝗧𝗍𝗧's date with a fallen angel and that she nearly killed him last night, to which he saved 𝗧𝗍𝗧 from death. Sona nodded her head before heading off to find something else to do instead of messing with the draconic boy, who was still going through his moment of clarity. I need to get back at her, Izuku thought, entering the school for another long day of learning. Hours earlier, 𝗧𝗍𝗧 woke up that morning in his bed as he was completely confused about what had happened last night. All he remembered was the fact that he was on a date with Yuma Amano, and he stopped at the fountain in the park, and then everything is blank. He does remember Izuku arriving to the park as well, but nothing else out of the ordinary, other than Izuku being at the park with Murayama. 𝗧𝗍𝗧 was getting out of his bed when he noticed something coming out of his head, and as he reached for them, he noticed that they were horns coming out of his head. Needless to say, he was panicking and was running around the room only to see his mother in the room staring at his head as his horns were there for her to see. 𝗬𝗍𝗧, what are you doing wearing horns on your head? Miki Hayadu asked, concerned. I don't know. I woke up with them there this morning. I can't get them off. 𝗧𝗍𝗧 said, trying to take them off and groaning in pain when he did. Don't take them off, dear. You might hurt yourself in the process. Miki Hayadu said, stopping her son from hurting himself. I will talk to your father about this development myself, and we will talk about what to do then. So how was your date? Miki asked her son. It was fine, until, if I remember correctly, she tried to kill me for something I don't even know about. 𝗧𝗍𝗧 said, confused. What did she say? Miki asked. Yuma said that I was a threat to her faction and that I should blame him for giving me something called a sacred gear, and that he gave it to me. I don't even know what the hell she was even talking about. Then something strange happened before she attacked me. 𝗧𝗧𝗧 said, still reeling from the memory. What happened, 𝗧𝗧𝗧? Miki asked. Izuku, the new boy at school, transformed into a dragon, and he had killed the woman after she transformed into a weird fallen angel like from the Bible. 𝗧𝗧𝗧 said, confusing even his mother. I think you've watched too much porn, dear. Miki said, thinking her son was crazy. I'm not lying, Mom. When have I ever lied to you? 𝗧𝗧𝗧 asked, and earning a nod from his mother as the duo went to their kitchen and talked to Hayadu about 𝗧𝗧𝗧's predicament. So, you're saying that a woman asked you out on a date and tried to kill you at the end of it, only to be saved by that new boy at your school as he transformed into a dragon, and the woman transformed into a fallen angel creature from the Bible, and the dragon boy killed the angel? Gur asked. Yes, and I still am confused how Izuku found me there. 𝗧𝗧𝗧 said, staring at the ground. I knew that boy was a good person getting you to slowly get rid of your pawn, but to outright save you from death was a good thing. Gur said. What do you mean? You believe me? 𝗧𝗧𝗧 asked. Son, I have been informed of the supernatural because of the fact that I am a devil. Gur said, revealing his wings. What does this mean, Dad? 𝗧𝗧𝗧 asked. Well, I am a part of the 72 pillars of the Devil Society who were wiped out in the Great War between the three factions of heaven, Grigori, as well as the underworld. Gur said, calmly as if he knew this would happen. So, am I a devil too? 𝗧𝗧𝗧 asked. Yes, I just took your presence away so that nobody would even know that you existed in Devil Society. I know how they deal with half-human half-devil children as they are discriminated against highly. Gur said. Well, which devil house do we belong to? 𝗧𝗧𝗧 asked, his mother having passed out from information 6 minutes ago. It's in our last name, kid. Hayadu was the name of my clan when I took it over from my father, Joseph Hayadu. He died in the war, forcing me to escape the underworld with my life and stayed here, and the reason that you're here alive now is because of the fact that devils don't have very good reproductive systems, which makes it harder to procreate. But since you have human blood in you, you can have a woman bear a child much easier. Not to mention I can sense a draconic aura inside you, meaning you have a draconic sacred gear. Gur said, surprising his son. What is a sacred gear though? 𝗧𝗧𝗧 asked, confused. A sacred gear is a powerful tool/weapon gifted to humans as a form of protection from the factions as well as other supernatural species out there that will wish to have you on their side in order to gain a loyal outsider as an ally. Gur said, sipping his coffee. Well, thanks for the information. I will head to school today. I need to let this all settle in my mind. 𝗧𝗧𝗧 said. I will let your presence be known to the world when you get home tonight, Goru said as Issei walked out the door. Minutes later, third POV Issei walked to school, and as he was walking, he was trying to figure out why his father never told him about this information until now. He was trying to protect us from the other supernatural creatures out there. He had to have done that, Issei thought before running into Izuku walking to school. Issei caught up to Izuku and began to strike up a conversation with the young man. Hey man, can I talk to you during lunch? I need to get something off my chest about something my dad revealed to me this morning. Issei asked. Sure Ise, I can talk with you during lunch. Why are there horns on your head? Izuku asked. I don't know, they appeared this morning. Issei said, still confused. We'll try to think about it disappearing and it might. Izuku said, watching as Issei did this and the horns disappeared. Are they gone? Issei asked. Yup. Now let's head to the school. You've got to speak to Rias today in the Occult Research Club after school. Izuku said, receiving a nod from the boy. Hours later, Issei was walking to a lunch table as he found Izuku walking to a tree outside and followed him out there. As soon as Izuku noticed Issei following him, he sat down in front of a tree that was blossoming with pink flowers. So, what did you wish to talk about, Issei? Izuku asked, curious? My dad talked to me about what a sacred gear was, and he told me about the supernatural. Also, about me being half human, half devil, and how the Devil Society frowns on hybrid devils. Issei said, sitting down. Well, that does happen all the time. But what family are you from if you're half devil? Izuku questioned. I am from the 𝗳𝗲𝗄𝗏 clan from what my father said, and he was telling me that I was the heir to the 𝗳𝗲𝗄𝗏 clan since I am his son. But he hid me from the Devil Society considering he was alive since the Great War. Issei said, looking at the sky. I can see that happening. He wanted to keep himself alive, but he can't stay hidden for very long, Issei. He will have to come out of hiding in order to take over the 𝗳𝗲𝗄𝗏 clan head's position on the Council of Elders. Izuku said, that's what I am afraid of. He will have to go back to the underworld when they find out that I am not fully a human and that I have some devil powers. My dad even said that he will be revealing my presence to the world when I get home today. Issei said, I say that you should embrace your bloodline, just keep your perversion to an all-time low as you will be required to go to young devil meetings from time to time. Izuku said, how do you know about devil meetings and SHT? Issei asked. First off, swearing is illegal around me. Secondly, I was the ride for Rias and Sona a few times in the underworld. I am a dragon, so I lent those two a hand to getting there from time to time, and I wouldn't mind allowing you to do the same. I just really like helping others. Izuku said, earning a nod from Issei. Well, if that is all, I will head to the Occult Research Club now. Issei said, walking away. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 was walking to the Occult Research Club room when he encountered 𝗵𝗃𝗃 exiting the door to the old school building as he smiled at Issei. Well, this saves me some time trying to find you, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 said, smiling. Come in, pretty boy, we need to talk to your 𝗵𝗃𝗃 are really quick to get me caught up on something I should have known since I was a kid. Issei said, impatient? Oh, well I guess we can head there now. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 said, opening the door for Issei. They continue to walk up the stairs and find the main room for the club. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 opens the door and tells Rias that Issei came to them and that saved them some time finding him, earning a nod from Rias. She sits on the couch and Issei sits on the other couch on the opposite side of Rias. As she inspects him, she finds not Issei the pervert, but 𝗳𝗍𝗳𝗐, a confused boy who needs answers. What do you need from me, Ise-kun? Rias asked. I want to know what I missed out on the young devil meetings from the age of when you are able to go there to now. Issei said, seriously? I'm sure. Rias said as she explained everything she had learned over the years of being a young devil. She had no clue that Issei was soaking this information in order to tell his father. Is there a reason you wish to know all of this? Rias asked. I am going to have my devil presence revealed by my father when I get home today, so when I come to school tomorrow and you sense a devil presence in your territory, know that it is me, but also I have a 𝗧𝗏𝗃𝗏 sacred gear. Issei said, well, would you like to join my peerage tomorrow? Rias asked. Yes, I will. I need as much experience in being a devil as possible to make up for the amount of time I missed. Issei said, Rias nodding at his explanation. So, do you guys know what happened to Yuma? Issei asked, making sure the beach was dead. She was killed by Izuku as he saved you from being killed by her. Rias said, okay, thank you for keeping an eye on me, and I will be back tomorrow. Issei said, walking away. Izuku was enjoying his day as Issei had become a full-fledged devil and was reincarnated into 𝗬𝗓𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏 not even 3 days ago. Rias had told Izuku that he will be needed in order to make sure that Issei is properly trained in using his sacred gear as well as learning how to use his devil powers from his father. Who would have thought that Issei was part devil from the beginning, huh? Well, we should get back to our main character Izuku. Izuku was lazing around under a maple tree as he was enjoying the breeze that the shade provided for him. It was a surreal experience for him as he always enjoyed whenever he was able to do this when nobody was looking. If you were to compare Izuku to another of his species, then you would say that he would be an enigma in the dragon community. His older brother Shigaraki was found out to be a powerful dragon as he trained almost every day in the dragon's territory. Speaking of whom, Izuku still kept in touch with him as Shigaraki was still about Izuku still getting his aura before him. Izuku's aura instilled a calming force onto anyone who came near him, unconsciously. His whole demeanor was that of the calmest being on the planet, but even the calmest beings can be enraged if poked enough. Other than that, Izuku was resting from his daily training with Issei as the said boy was resting next to him. Issei could see why the school called him the school's resident pet, as it seemed that he would laze around at any point of the day, but at the same time be so energetic like an adorable puppy who just got shown a chew toy. Issei looked at Izuku as a sort of 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗏 of draconic ways, as well as tried on occasion to get him at least a little perverted. What he didn't know was that Izuku was a closet pervert. He just almost never showed it at any time. It was so infuriating to the resident pervert. But at the same time, Izuku noticed that Issei's tendencies of peeping on the girls had noticeably decreased by at least 15%. Issei, have you been peeping on the girls recently? Izuku asked, curious. Not recently, but I have decreased the amount I've peeped on them by a considerable amount. Not to the point where they can trust me to not peep on them all the time, but an amount I am proud of. Issei said, looking at the sky. Well, that's good. I am glad you've gotten your perversion under some control. Izuku said, falling to the endless abyss of sleep. Hey, when do you think I will be able to fly like you? Issei asked. Soft. Snore. Issei looks to Izuku and finds the young boy asleep on the ground in a position that would cause most to have a nosebleed from adorableness. Izuku was sleeping with his legs tucked into his body, as his head was covered by his hands in a fetal position as his legs were tucked in a little to his stomach, but he was sleeping on his side. Click. Issei turned to one of the bushes nearby and found one of the girls taking a picture of Izuku sleeping as their noses were bleeding. Issei couldn't understand why Izuku sleeping like this caused the girls to be like this, but he had to go to the ORC since there was someone going to visit today. During the weeks building up to this day, Rias had been acting weird and Izuku had been getting annoyed very easily as well. Who was it that was making even Izuku annoyed with their mere presence? Whoever they are definitely annoyed Issei, as if they annoyed Izuku then you are a threat to society. Issei makes his way over to the ORC when he runs into 𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗃𝗏. She ran into Issei a couple weeks ago and was saved by Rias from the fallen angels because they were going to kill her for her sacred gear of twilight healing. For some reason though, Izuku was more defensive of the young girl as he told Issei that she had some dragon tamer DNA inside her genes that made him a lot more protective of the girl. They had also gotten their familiars as Issei was left in the dust without one. 𝗂𝗏𝗃𝗏 had a sprite dragon familiar, and its main ability was shocking anyone with its electricity. Issei was very jealous of her familiar. But before I get sidetracked, we return to Issei entering the ORC where he met Rias maid Graphia. She was an appealing woman with silver hair and blue eyes that were as cold as the ice in Antarctica. She was also the wife of 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗓 Lucifer, the current king of hell. She was just informing Rias that her fiancé was going to arrive within minutes and will make his presence known in a few minutes. Just as Rias was about to tell them why she was being married to her fiancé, a magic circle appeared with a symbol of a phoenix. And out came a man with blonde hair that was short and spiked in the front, as well as wearing a burgundy red suit that had the 𝗬𝗏𝗃𝗏 area open to show his abs and pectoral muscles. At this point Izuku entered the ORC as he sat down next to Kaneko and shared some snacks, but the most defining feature of his face was his scowl as well as annoyed look he made to the man. The man in question had then chuckled at Izuku's look of annoyance and made his way over to 𝗧𝗧𝗏. "𝗧𝗧𝗏 has come to pick up his bride," 𝗧𝗧𝗏 announced, joyously. "Looks like you're still referring to yourself in the third person pompous prick," Izuku said, growling. "It seems like the dragon reject is still friends with my lovely 𝗧𝗧𝗏. We need to head to the underworld in order to get this marriage completed, my dear 𝗧𝗧𝗏." 𝗧𝗧𝗏 said, only to be smacked away. "I will not marry you, 𝗧𝗧𝗏. How many times do I have to tell you this?" 𝗧𝗧𝗏 yelled, smacking his hand off of her. "Still feisty as ever, my dear 𝗧𝗧𝗏, but if anything, the devil higher-ups announced for this to happen. If anything, I am merely listening to their request." 𝗧𝗧𝗏 said coyly, "I will marry someone, 𝗧𝗧𝗏." 𝗧𝗧𝗏 starts. "Great. Then let's go and get dash," 𝗧𝗧𝗏 said, before getting interrupted. "But I will not marry you. I will marry someone who I come to love. Not someone who thinks that they are in the right to marry someone without their love returned." 𝗧𝗧𝗏 said, sitting down on the couch. Issei was starting to notice Izuku's hand twitch as if begging 𝗧𝗧𝗏 to do something more before putting the man in his place. "𝗧𝗧𝗏, I would like to ask you to stop messing with 𝗧𝗧𝗏. She doesn't want to marry you, so she will battle you in a rating game. If she wins the rating game, she will be free of her forced marriage. But if she loses, she will be forced to marry you without any fighting. That is what the papers said from the elders." 𝗳𝗏𝗃𝗲 said. 𝗂𝗏𝗏 𝗳𝗃𝗲 is more leaning to 𝗧𝗧𝗏's side because of the fact that she is her little sister by marriage. "Well, if you put it like that, then I will accept this as the choice, since 𝗧𝗧𝗏 hasn't got more pieces than me. I have a full set, whilst she barely has more than 5 pieces." 𝗧𝗧𝗏 said, summoning his peerage there. Issei, to be honest, was very jealous of the fact that 𝗧𝗧𝗏 had achieved his dream of having a 𝗧𝗏𝗏 whilst Izuku stayed quiet as he saw the girl from his childhood revel. Once the peerage arrived, Issei cried BLD in front of 𝗧𝗧𝗏, who merely chuckled as he called his queen up to himself. "Come here, you Baluna. I want to give 𝗧𝗏𝗏 a show before we leave," 𝗧𝗧𝗏 said, not noticing his sister move out from the peerage. Izuku moved over to the spot near 𝗳𝗏𝗏 and just transformed into a smaller version of his dragon form and laid down on the ground. Revel moved closer to him and started to pet his head as she sat down near Izuku. As this was happening, the whole chaos that was happening stopped when 𝗧𝗧𝗏 noticed his sister moved from her spot. 𝗧𝗧𝗏 hummed, in confusion. He looked over to his sister's new location as he found her petting Izuku's draconic head as he was laying on the ground purring like a normal house cat. 𝗧𝗏𝗏, not letting this moment pass, used a magic circle to take a picture of it whilst Kaneko just joined in the petting of Izuku's head. 𝗧𝗧𝗏 was that his sister was actually giving the dragon reject more attention than himself as he walked over and told his sister, "Revel, get away from that reject of a dragon. We need to head home to train you to defend yourself," 𝗧𝗧𝗏 said, starting the magic circle. 𝗳𝗏𝗏 watched how the scene played out and noticed a blush on Ravel's face as she was petting the dragon boy. She nodded her head and advised Revel to return home, to which the girl nodded her head and said her goodbyes to Izuku, who merely snorted, transforming back into his human form, also causing Kaneko to pout. "You have 10 days to get strong enough to handle my team, 𝗧𝗧𝗏. And once I defeat your peerage, I will make all of you females into my beaches," 𝗧𝗧𝗏 called out, leaving in a flash of yellow and fire. "Now that that's over, I can finally rest on the couch," Izuku said, transforming again into his draconic state and lying on the couch. Kaneko then started to rub his head as this was one of the only times that she will be able to pet a dragon and wanted to not let this moment be wasted. "Well, we will be going to my family's vacation house in the underworld to train for the rating game. I hope you will have all your stuff collected by then," 𝗧𝗏𝗏 said, leaving the room. Asia looked at Issei as the boy was staring up into the sky, as his only thoughts were that he will become the 𝗧𝗏𝗏 king, but at the same time he will become a proper devil and enter devil society and make his father proud. The next morning Izuku woke up to a peculiar sight. Murayama was lying next to him in her pajamas, and she was sleeping on his 𝗧𝗏𝗃𝗧𝗏 was there too as well, confusing the poor boy. He had no idea that she was into him, so he just shrugged his head and packed his stuff that coincidentally woke up Murayama and 𝗧𝗏𝗃𝗧𝗏. Where are you going, Izuku? Murayama asked, yawning. I need to help Issei train his sacred gear in order to be of use to his emissary and fellow young devil 𝗲𝗲. If he is strong enough to defend her and save her from 𝗲𝗲's marriage to 𝗬𝗏, then he may get the love he had always wanted. Izuku said, causing both girls to nod their heads and head to sleep. Be safe, Izuku. And return to us so we can go out on another date. This time with both of us. 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 said, staring at Izuku's back. I will. See you all in 10 days. Izuku said, disappearing from a magic circle. We should get him to teach us some magic when he returns, Murayama said, getting a nod from 𝗧𝗧𝗏. As Izuku arrived at the ORC, he saw Issei groggily still waking up from getting up at this point in the morning and brought a coffee to him. Here, take this to wake yourself up. The caffeine would wake you up faster. Izuku said. Issei took the coffee and drank it all in 5 gulps and was energized. He grabbed his stuff and walked over to the magic circle. Well, let's go train to defeat this Yakitori. Izuku said, jumping into the magic circle 𝗲𝗲 made, with her chuckling at Izuku's energy. As the group enter the magic circle and exit on the other side, they find a tall mountain and Issei is the first to announce his hatred of it. Why are we on a mountain, Bucho? Are we going to be training here? Issei asked. Issei, we need to get to the top of the mountain in order to get your training started. We need you to be as strong as possible in order to win this raiding game. 𝗲𝗲 said, looking back as Izuku was conversing with Kaneko. So, you are going to try and increase your strength in order to defeat one of his peerage? Izuku asks, curious. Yes. I will make sure my strength is up to par with the others' qualities. Kaneko said, as both she and Izuku passed Issei, 𝗲𝗲 and Akino with 𝗵𝗃𝗲 not too far behind them. I wonder when those two became so close to one another. 𝗲𝗲 thought to herself. As they arrived at the vacation home of the 𝗵𝗃𝗃 family, Izuku stretches himself and grabs Issei and takes him inside the building. So eager to train, isn't he? Akino asked, intrigued. Yes, he doesn't necessarily like 𝗲𝗏. They get on the other's nerves fairly easily and Izuku is not quite easily angered. 𝗲𝗏 said, looking in the distance. Well, at least he isn't a part of the 𝗵𝗃𝗃 peerage. At least he doesn't have to deal with us trying to stuck him. Akino said, walking towards the building. He doesn't get aroused by us, Akino. He just looks the other way like he isn't attracted to us. 𝗲𝗏 said, looking down. Then why was he allowing Ravelle-chan to scratch him under his chin in his smaller dragon form? Akino asked, confused. They met before we met him. He found her in a forest lost looking for her brother. He doesn't like 𝗲𝗏 because of the fact that he left his sister in the forest all alone to find him when he was at home the entire time. 𝗲𝗏 said, looking sad. Well, since he likes younger girls, does he like Kaneko? Akino asked, clearly trying to tease Izuku since he had entered the room. If you are asking if I am attracted to Kaneko, then you're wrong. I in fact feel like she is a friend or something akin to a sister. Also, 𝗲𝗏, my brother, is coming here tomorrow to make sure your pawn is up to par in order to defeat that Yakitori 𝗧𝗔𝗍𝗏. Izuku said, at the end of the sentence going a little Russian accented. Shigaraki is coming here? Akino asked, surprised by the notion of another dragon arriving. Yep, he will be assisting Issei with his training. He is many times stronger than me, so he will be the best help for him. Don't worry, he won't kill your pawn. Izuku reassured. 𝗲𝗏 looked at Izuku in awe as she was getting all the help from her friend and she felt that he was helping too much. You know that you don't have to help us. You can continue your own devices as well as explore 𝗏𝗏. 𝗲𝗏 said, trying to make him leave. You won't get me to leave this easily. I know that you all need to be as strong as 𝗲𝗏 or even stronger than him. I will make sure that he can defend himself at the very least. But Shigaraki will make sure that he will be able to defeat any opponent he crosses. Izuku said, looking over the mountain in the distance, feeling Shigaraki closing in on them. Well, if you insist, Akino said, chuckling. Soon everyone had changed into their training clothes and were lined up outside of the building as 𝗲𝗏 began to say what was needed to be said. Alright, everyone is weaker than we need to be, so Izuku will be training Issei with his brother assisting to make sure that he is stronger than 𝗲𝗏. 𝗲𝗏 starts, getting Issei's attention. You have a brother? Issei yells, surprised. Yes, and I will inform you now any funny business and he will blast you with his decaying breath. It won't kill you, but it will hurt like a son of a female dog. Izuku said. Okay, gulp. 𝗬𝗍𝗍 said, gulping at the mention of decaying. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 will increase his speed as well as his strength whenever Izuku is not training 𝗬𝗍𝗍 with his brother. And he will be training Kaneko when he isn't training 𝗵𝗃𝗲. After that 𝗬𝗍𝗍 will learn how to use devil magic from Akino with Asia. Asia will need to focus on making sure that she increases her endurance. Rias said, as a loud boom was heard in the forest. That's us 𝗬𝗍𝗍, see you all in a week. Izuku said, grabbing 𝗬𝗍𝗍 and flying off. Wait. Why am I being dragged away? Ucho. Save me. 𝗬𝗍𝗍 screamed as he was pulled into the forest. Well, you heard him 𝗵𝗃𝗲 get to training. Kaneko said, walking into the forest as well. With Izuku and 𝗬𝗍𝗍, Izuku can be seen arriving in a clearing where his older brother Shigaraki had landed as he was staring at the forest in anger as well as annoyance. When I heard that you were training the Red Dragon Emperor, I thought that you'd be training someone stronger than you, not this perverted boy. Shigaraki said, annoyed already. Well, he is the Red Dragon Emperor, so we need to make sure that he is as strong as us or more powerful. And hey, if he becomes more powerful than me, he can be a great rival for you, bro, Izuku said, fist bumping him. Let's just get this training started. Shigaraki said, staring into 𝗬𝗍𝗍's eyes, inciting fear into the poor boy. Gulp, 𝗬𝗍𝗍. Days later, 𝗬𝗍𝗍 is seen running into the forest as he is dodging fireballs being launched at him from Shigaraki. He was dodging them when he heard that 𝗧𝗪𝗏 called out his best boost from the sacred gear. He had been charging his power as much as he could and increased his max from a mere 5 boosts to a whopping 35 boosts. He felt like he was stronger than everyone else and he released his most powerful attack, the Dragon Shot. It was sent flying towards Shigaraki in his draconic form and it lands as he blocks the attack with his arms. A dust cloud is shown in the area as 𝗬𝗍𝗍 continues to run off, knowing that if he stops Shigaraki then Izuku will appear not far behind. He had learned that Izuku was in fact 10 times weaker than Shigaraki since Shigaraki had trained harder than him and Izuku was more in the mindset of training when he needed to. But at the same time he trained when he had the chance, he just never had the time to do it with his duties to protect Kuo Town with Rias and Sona. During his inner monologue, 𝗬𝗍𝗍 is smacked away by a green-clawed hand and hits a tree not too far away. You did well for 35 boosts, 𝗬𝗍𝗍. It's only a matter of time before you unlock Balance Breaker. Izuku praised. Thanks, but I feel like I can't defeat anyone when I get distracted. 𝗬𝗍𝗍 said, looking away. Well, it's alright to be distracted by something. Just make sure that it's not on your mind when in the middle of a fight, you will be caught off guard and will pay the price. Izuku said, looking at Shigaraki. What happened to you guys? Are you in pain from a past memory or something? 𝗬𝗍𝗍 asks, confused. You could say that for him. Shigaraki said, walking out of the foliage without a scratch. What happened? 𝗬𝗍𝗍 asked, confused. When I lowered my guard, it was when I got my brother to not be a villain anymore. After I lowered my guard and placed the cuffs on him, I was betrayed by my old friends. Izuku said, looking away with a sad look. What are you talking about? What kind of cuffs are for a dragon? 𝗬𝗍𝗍 asked. We aren't from this world, we are reborn into this one and are the children of Dragon King Tannen and the Dragon Petunia. Shigaraki said. There are other worlds out there. But I wonder if there are any cute girls in that world you came from. 𝗬𝗍𝗍 said out loud. Izuku stared at 𝗬𝗍𝗍 with a deadpan expression as he couldn't believe that perversion was still in the mind of the boy in front of himself. I give up, Izuku said, walking away. What happened? 𝗬𝗍𝗍 asked. You just made him give up on someone. Be happy you made him give up, that is an achievement. Shigaraki said, proud of the perverted boy. What do you mean? 𝗬𝗍𝗍 asked. I mean that in our world there was nothing that could stop him from turning an enemy into a friend. He even turned an ally who hid half of his power and made them use their full power in a tournament. Shigaraki said, before continuing. He was fighting me for months before he managed to get me to give up on villainy and side with the heroes. You just made the impossible possible. Shigaraki said, walking away, allowing the boy to rest. Meanwhile, with Izuku, just what is up with his head? I have been trying to change his views on the women in his life as well as making his perversion stop to a minuscule amount. And he just decided to think about girls from my world. Izuku raged in his head. He was really taking this boy's perversion and underestimating it since he thought the boy could be saved from it. To think that he had made him of all people give up on saving his life from perversion. And he had lost to that because it seems like that boy is the epitome of lust, and he could only think about one other friend that was killed in his world in his 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗲. He was extremely perverted and was always making a 𝗧𝗟𝗘 joke to his female classmates as it was about to get to the point. He was about to report the boy for it. He was forced into a war against the villains and Shigaraki. Now that he was alone, he started to release his power and make it to where he could vent out his anger as well as sadness at not being able to save Issei from himself. His selfish were quite literally the only thing keeping the boy from attaining his balance breaker. He couldn't think of a way to get the boy to get the power without having him do something 𝗧𝗟𝗘 in order to get it. If he gets that power and does it in the worst 𝗧𝗟𝗘 way possible, he might get an aneurysm out of sheer stupidity. Not far away from Izuku, Shigaraki lands down next to the boy and walks over to him to try and at least console him from his least favorable moment. Well, that happened. Shigaraki said, looking at the mountain in front of them sitting on a rock themselves. You could say that again, not literally but figuratively. Izuku said, staring at the mountain as well as the sunset. So, do you want to talk about it? Shigaraki asked. I have been trying to get him to get a handle on his perversion for weeks, and he just pops out with it today. I can't handle it, not after looking back at my history with 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗃. Izuku said, venting tears coming out of his eyes. I know, but if anything, that was the first time he mentioned a woman's melons since he first started. So, I would like to say that it was progress. Shigaraki said, looking at Izuku's face. Yes. Izuku said, getting up. So, any one of the girls in your life like you? Shigaraki asked teasingly. All he got was Izuku's deadpan expression that was slowly beginning to redden to the point he was about to steam from the redness. I have a girlfriend now, but she decided to enter a polyamorous relationship with me. I do have feelings for that Phoenix girl in Riser's peerage as well. But I don't know if she likes me as well. I saved her when she was younger, but it could be that her affection is because I am her savior. Izuku said, looking at the sky. Well, at least you are about to get some kind of love from your girlfriends when you return. Shigaraki laughs. Please stop teasing me, Aniki. Izuku cries out, red face and all. Izuku watches on as the group returns from their training as Issei was noticeably more muscular than when he first began his training. Alright guys, we have a few hours before the battle begins against Riser Phoenix. We need to clear our heads in order to be able to defeat him, Ria said, looking at her peerage. She found them looking at her with trust as well as confidence as they were prepared for their fight against the Firebird. She looked over at Izuku as he watched them with sad eyes. Is something on your mind, Izuku? Rias asked the dragon boy. I'm just worried. Issei is stronger than Riser and this fight might make him arrogant to not train further. Izuku said, getting her full attention. I will make sure that he knows that there are more powerful people out there so that he doesn't get arrogant. Rias said, placing her hand on Izuku's shoulder. I will watch with Sona here. I wish you luck in your first raiding game, Rias. Izuku said, giving her a small smile. Thank you for your cheering. We will defeat Riser. Issei said, entering the conversation. Izuku looks at the perverted boy with a sad expression before looking out the window at the school. Are you okay, Izuku? I'm sorry about what happened during the training. Issei said, looking bashful. Don't worry, just please lower your perversion as much as you can. I don't want to know this generation's red dragon as an 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗃 dragon. Izuku said, looking away, scratching his head. As soon as Izuku left the room, Issei looked towards Rias as she was getting ready to prepare them for the battle ahead and got serious. Alright everyone. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗵 will be arriving soon, and we need a plan in order to set Riser up for a trap. Rias said as Akino stepped beside her. Kiba, you and Kaneko will set up traps around the ORC when we arrive inside the barrier where the raiding game will be held. Issei will stay with me for a few minutes as he will need to be with me for that time frame before heading to the gym with Kaneko. Akino will destroy the gym in order to take away the first place that Riser will take from me to gain the advantage. Asia, you will need to stay by my side for the entire time that the game will be going on, is that alright? Rias asked. Yes. I will stay near you, Asia said, stuttering. Alright. Let's be ready for the battle, Aquino said, staring at Issei filled with lust. Issei got a little embarrassed at being stared at but got a little perverted face as he noticed her lust, and a dopey smile appeared as he was in La La Land. Chuckling, Aquino walked over to the spot near Ria's seat as she began to do some papers before the battle began. 19 minutes pass and 𝗵𝗃𝗲 arrived in the room to take them to the arena that they will be doing the battle. Just after they left, Izuku returned with Sona as well as 𝗬𝗵𝗃𝗲 as they sat in the seat behind Ria's desk in order to watch the battle from there. Izuku watches as the group of girls and boy arrived inside the rating games version of the school, and Issei got confused immediately. So, this battle will take place in an area where Issei and the others have the home field advantage, Izuku said, staring at the screen. Yes, this is how 𝗧𝗏 battles. He wants his opponents to have a feeling of safety in their place of knowing. Then he uses pure force as well as endurance to outlast the enemy. Not only that, but he has only been defeated twice. Both times were with him actually yielding the other way because he got something out of it. Sona said, watching the screen closely. What do you think is her plan, Izuku? 𝗬𝗏𝗃𝗲 asked, curious. Rias will be having 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗏 and Kaneko head outside the ORC in there and place fog as well as traps near the building in order to stave off any pawns or people who get near their base. Then she will release some of Issei's potential as a dragon/devil hybrid. But it will be this fight that Issei's heritage will be revealed, Izuku said, confusing the girls present. Issei's a devil-human hybrid, Sona said, looking at the dragon boy. No, he is a dragon/devil hybrid. I used some of my energy to transform Issei into a hybrid dragon and human, but it was after I talked to him before 𝗧𝗏 had shown up that he was from the 𝗳𝗏𝗃𝗏 family tree that served the Leviathan family of devils. His father escaped the underworld because his entire family tree was destroyed in the Great War, Izuku said, staring at Issei. So how powerful is he? 𝗬𝗏𝗃𝗏 asked, confused. He will become the next heir to the 𝗳𝗏𝗃𝗏 line, and his power already eclipses 𝗧𝗏𝗏's full power. Not only that, but since he had some human DNA inside his body, he was able to get the boosted gear, Izuku said. Soon the voice of 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗏 is heard in the world of the rating game as Izuku, Sona and 𝗬𝗏𝗃𝗏 listen to the strongest queen of the underworld. The rating game will begin shortly. Rias Gremory will be stationed at the Occult Research Clubroom, while 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏 will be stationed at the principal's office inside the main school building. Whoever defeats the king of each opposing party will win the rating game. The game will begin in 2 minutes, 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏 said, ending the communication. Izuku watches on in a bated breath as Rias has done everything that he stated as 𝗧𝗏 has yet to move his pieces. Alright, this is the beginning of the battle. I just hope that Issei is able to use his new power, Izuku thought to himself. Flashback 2 days ago, Issei was seen using his power in a completely new way as he used it against Izuku in taking his power by placing his power inside of Izuku's body before taking some of it. I never thought that you'd be able to use a skill that Albion mainly used, Issei, Izuku said, staring at the boy on the ground. I know, but you're just too strong for me. I have tried over and over again to take your power away from you, but nothing seems to work, Issei yelled, frustrated. Well, maybe you're doing it all wrong. Maybe instead of trying to take the power of your opponent away, maybe you should use that power you have to power up your ally, Izuku asked as he watched the gears turn in the boy. Izuku knows Issei is far from being an idiot. The boy just needs to think in a different way, even though he was giving him a hint. I see, I need to boost myself in order to help my friends, Issei said. Issei continues on this thought as he has 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏 training with him today as they come up with a plan in order to keep Issei charging his energy in order to use it on 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏. As it turned out, he could transfer his power to his ally when 𝗵𝗃𝗏 was out of energy and Issei was fully charged with 78 boosts. As it was completed, Issei slammed his hand on 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏's shoulder and transferred his power to him, and they watched in awe as well as shock as 𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏 shouted, "Transfer." As 𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏 was filled with power and launched himself at Izuku and landed a scratch on his scales. It was this moment that Izuku realized that he wasn't untouchable thanks to his scales and that he needed to be stronger in order to defend others as well as himself. Flashback over Izuku watched as 𝗂𝗧𝗏 released his hidden power that reached the point of which he could use Balance Breaker if by looking at his aura. Izuku's dragon 𝗵𝘃𝗍 was boiling at the thought of fighting the red dragon as well. He never thought about fighting for fun or improvement until he found out that he could be defeated. He had been training with them both in his human form as well since he wanted to make sure that he stayed ahead of both devils. 𝗬𝗍's power was natural as he was a devil and his power as a dragon was growing every day, and Izuku knew that he needed to get stronger before something else happened, so he decided to let his father know about his ambition to get stronger when this was over. As the game started, Izuku watched as 𝗬𝗍 and Kaneko arrived at the gym in the middle of the school grounds and began their battle with Riser's strongest piece, his rook. His rook as well as 3 pawns were in the area, and 𝗬𝗍 would be fighting the pawns whilst Kaneko fought the rook. Kaneko was as strong as 𝗃𝗏 in terms of strength as well as power. Izuku beat it into her that she can't run away from her hidden power as she can control it, she just needs to use her complete focus to keep her power in check. 𝗬𝗏 Kaneko will be using her Nico powers as this will be a change in the timeline. But she will not fall in love with Izuku, she will fall in love with 𝗬𝗍. As the fight began, Izuku watched as 𝗵𝗃𝗍 lured the pawn pieces of Riser's peerage into a trap where they were trapped with him. His speed as well as strength were increased during the training. 𝗵𝗃𝗍 learned that speed doesn't mean anything without the power to actually do damage. An opponent would be able to find out his weakness, and as the saying goes, a great offense is a good defense, and a good defense is an even better offense. This was all happening at the same time as Izuku watched with Sona, and the woman had a few things to say about 𝗂𝗧𝗏's plan of getting to Riser. She plans on taking Riser on by herself. Sona said, worried. I know, she hasn't even trained herself to use technique in order to overwhelm Riser, she had only increased her reserves of power. Izuku explained Sona's worry. So, will they win? Tsubaki asked, worried as well. If 𝗂𝗧𝗏 goes after Riser all by herself, they will lose as soon as he attacks her and takes out Asia. Izuku said, if they lose their healer, then that means that they won't be able to heal anymore. Tsubaki said, finally realizing the only flaw in 𝗂𝗧𝗏's plan. Yup, but 𝗂𝗧𝗏 is only a young devil. She hasn't got the experience to fight her opponents to the point she knows what she is doing is suicidal against a firebird that heals any wound. Izuku said as Sona agrees with him. It wasn't long before 𝗬𝗍 defeated the pawns as well as helped Kaneko take over the gym. They get a call from 𝗂𝗧𝗏 that 𝗃𝗏 would be destroying the gym and to get out of there, and Izuku watched as their faces became white as paper and get out of there. Soon after they left the building, an explosion happened and the gym was gone. 𝗬𝗍 gave Kaneko a high five as they continued towards the track and field. Just as they were moving, Kaneko noticed a presence nearby and pushed 𝗬𝗍 out of the way as she was engulfed into flames as well as an explosion. The explosion reminded Izuku of a certain ash blonde from his world that caused him to unknowingly flinch. Sona caught this flinch and was concerned about his flinch towards the explosive queen of Riser. Had he met her before? Why did he flinch at her explosion? Sona thought to herself. DMN, she got Kaneko. I hope her defense is bigger than she was when I first came here. Izuku said worriedly. As soon as the smoke and debris flowed away, it revealed Kaneko with burns as well as torn up clothes. Izuku released a sigh of relief. His little kitten was still okay. Wait, my little kitten. Well, I did think of her as my little sister, so I can let this feeling slide for now. Izuku thought to himself. The battle continued as 𝗃𝗏 arrived to distract the explosion queen of Riser's peerage. 𝗬𝗍 and Kaneko arrived at the track and field area and met up with 𝗃𝗏 as he had defeated the 3 pawns as well as a bishop. Well, it seems like 𝗂𝗧𝗏 still has all of her pieces and can continue farther than Riser can. Sona said, surprised. It won't last long. Riser holds at least 2 Phoenix Tears as he can heal his servants of all injuries as well as making sure that they are back to full strength afterward. Izuku said. He's right, Riser has yet to use a Phoenix Tear. This might be bad. His queen or bishop could have it. Tsubaki said, watching the screen closely. It's his queen and his little sister that will have the Phoenix Tears. Izuku said, monotonously. How do you know? Sona asked, curious. He has never lost his queen in a raiding game at all. Every time she was close to losing, she used her tears to heal up and defeat her weakened opponent. Izuku said, watching as 𝗂𝗍𝗄 was launching powerful attacks at the Explosion Queen as fast as she could. She is trying to defeat her opponent as fast as possible. Tsubaki said, watching on in a bated breath. She will run out of power soon. She will then be blindsided by the queen when she takes her Phoenix Tear. Izuku said, sighing. He knew that 𝗂𝗍𝗄 and 𝗧𝗏 were powerful, but did they seriously think that adding more power to yourself would help them defeat their opponents? All that would do is make your magic that you use take more power to damage their opponents, and the very same opponents, if they survive, would take advantage of their weakened states. **sigh**, what are you sighing about, Izuku? Tsubaki asked, confused. They increase their reserves, not increase their techniques. If I was against them, do you think that they would use all their power to defeat me or use tactics in order to twiddle my defenses down to the point of which I couldn't defend myself? Izuku asked. I would lower your defenses over time and take you down without worry for my peerage. Sona said, looking at what was happening. This is a rookie mistake as she is using her full power to defeat her opponent, and this will thereby make her out of commission to be defeated by the Explosion Queen. Izuku summarized. I see you're right, Sona said, continuing to watch. Izuku stepped outside the room in order to get a drink of water as well as to contact someone he knows to increase his training. A magic circle appears next to his ear as he waits for the person to answer. What is it, son? A voice called out gruffly. Dad, I need to train and get stronger, Izuku said. With Sona and Tsubaki, they watched on as 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗃 and 𝗵𝗃𝗃 attacked the remaining servants of 𝗧𝗏 as they were more powerful than them. 𝗧𝗃 took a rook as well as 2 pawns while 𝗵𝗃𝗃 took the bishop and knight. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 took the other knight as he was honorable like her. They were clashing swords as 𝗵𝗃𝗃 was swords many times since they kept getting destroyed. 𝗧𝗃 had managed to defeat his opponents but was low on stamina as he got blasted by the bishop piece from behind. He turned around to find the blonde-haired girl with drill-like pigtails. As he faced off against her, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 was defeating the other bishop piece with pure strength. Although as soon as she landed the final blow to defeat her, she was defeated at the same time. Rook of 𝗧𝗏 has been defeated. 𝗧𝗏𝗃𝗃 called out. 𝗧𝗃 looked away from his battle against the blonde girl as he saw 𝗵𝗃𝗃 disappear in blue wisps. He noticed that his gear was ready to transfer his power and called out 𝗵𝗃𝗃's name. 𝗵𝗃. 𝗧𝗃 yelled. Yes. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 called back, low on energy. Take this. 𝗧𝗃 called out, slamming his fist on 𝗵𝗃𝗃's back as 𝗧𝗃 called out. Transfer. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 gained a massive power boost as he launched his most powerful attack, 𝗧𝗏𝗃𝗃. The swords with their power had defeated the knight as well as the sister of 𝗧𝗏. A Phoenix Tear falls to the ground as 𝗧𝗃 wants to give it to 𝗵𝗃𝗃, but he declines in favor of having their strongest piece at full power. As 𝗧𝗃 takes the Phoenix Tear, he recovers his power as he is returned to full strength. He and 𝗵𝗃𝗃 then head over to the main school building as he makes his way inside the building to promote himself. As soon as this happens, he and 𝗵𝗃𝗃 head to the top floor of the building and find 𝗧𝗏 and Asia on the rooftop. Meanwhile, 𝗂𝗍𝗄 was standing over the body of 𝗣𝗏𝗄 the Explosion Queen as she grunted on the ground. As soon as she tried to take her Phoenix Tear out, she noticed that it was gone. What? She screamed. As she looked around, 𝗂𝗍𝗄 coughed, gaining her attention. You looking for this? 𝗂𝗍𝗄 asked, pulling out the Phoenix Tear. How did you get it? It was in between my 𝗣𝗏𝗄 yelled out in fury. I grabbed it when we collided together in the sky. But as soon as I defeated you, I realized something. I was low on power, and you were going to use this to defeat me. So why don't I make this ironic and use it against you? 𝗂𝗍𝗄 asked, smugly taking the Phoenix Tear. As soon as she was returned to full power, she lowered her hand towards the woman as she released her full power on the downed queen. 𝗧𝗏 Phoenix's queen has been defeated. 𝗧𝗏𝗃𝗃 called out in the intercom. As soon as this was heard, Izuku had returned to the ORC as Sona and Tsubaki looked on with a smile on their face. What is going on? Izuku asked. Well, it seems like 𝗧𝗏 will be winning the raiding game, Sona said, smugly. Izuku looked on as he saw 𝗂𝗍𝗄 using the Phoenix Tear and defeating 𝗣𝗏𝗄. Well, I'll be. She actually can be sneaky. Izuku muttered. The battle continued as Rizur was getting overwhelmed as 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲, Aquino and Ria started to use their full power on his body, and he couldn't continue on with the fight. But he managed to defeat 𝗵𝗃𝗲 and Aquino before he was knocked out by 𝗧𝗃 coming from behind with a vicious haymaker on the Phoenix's head. And there was the happiest thing that Izuku heard from the game in his entire life. Rizur has been defeated. The winner of the rating game is 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗟𝗍 called out. 𝗧𝗃 was on his way to 𝗂 Academy as he overheard that his club was going to celebrate their win against Rizur Phoenix. He was so happy that she wasn't slatted to marry that horrific man anymore, and now that he has lost to her, he will not underestimate their peerage again. He arrives at the school and sees Izuku talking to his older brother as he had come to visit, but something was off about Izuku. He was more 𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗍 towards his brother than normally on the training trip. He was worried about his friend and moved over to talk to the boy. "Hey Izuku. How are you doing, man?" 𝗧𝗍 asked worried. "Oh, it's nothing. I was just telling my brother about you guys' win against that 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲𝗍𝗔 Rizur Phoenix. You don't need to worry about me, I will be fine," Izuku said, moving away from both boys. "So, Shigaraki. What is really going on with Izuku? I've never seen him this worried about anything." 𝗧𝗍 demands. He is going to be training with father soon. But there has been a Dragon King that has been on his mind lately, and she hasn't left him alone in terms of mating. Knowing that he will become stronger than father made her want to have his children. He just is overwhelmed at the moment, Shigaraki said, as he stared into 𝗧𝗍's eyes with his BLD red ones. "Oh, so he is having girl troubles. I never knew that he would be into women. He just seems so attached to Kaneko all the time since they look like siblings." 𝗧𝗍 said, "Yes, it would be best if you left him alone. He never had this problem in our old world. He was just too focused on becoming a hero and save me from becoming worse than my father," Shigaraki said, walking away. 𝗧𝗍 watches on as the brother walks towards the forest nearby and uses his magic to disappear from the human world. "I got to learn how to do that," 𝗧𝗍 thought to himself as he walked to class. Hours later, 𝗧𝗍 was inside the ORC when he noticed Izuku's absence from the room altogether. "Hey, where did Izuku go?" 𝗧𝗍 asked, confused. "Oh, didn't he tell you?" Rias asked, confused. "What did he do? Where did he go?" 𝗧𝗍 asked. Izuku returned to the underworld to train himself to become stronger than he was originally. "He needs this, I think," Rias said, gaining Kaneko's attention. He said that when you and 𝗵𝗃𝗲 managed to damage his tough scales, he was actually fearful of his life since he had never been scratched by someone other than his mother, father or brother before you and 𝗵𝗃𝗲. Kaneko said worriedly. "Wait, so he was so strong that he thought he was invincible?" 𝗧𝗍 asked. "Not invincible, but he did think that he was strong enough to defend himself should the reason arise." Aquino said, looking at 𝗧𝗍. "Wow, who is his father?" 𝗧𝗍 asked. "His father's name is Ria started. Underworld Tannin." A motherly voice of a dragon called out. The massive 15-meter-tall Dragon King appeared from around the house and saw his son Izuku standing in front of the door. "Izuku, it's been a while since you came home. How are you doing?" he asked in a gruff, scratchy voice. "Dad, I need your help," Izuku said, looking at his father. What do you need help with?" Tannin asked, curious. "There is no way he is thinking of asking me what I think he is asking me, right?" Tannin thought, curiously. It had been years since Izuku had trained with him since he was a little baby Drake, and seeing him now made him remember their times training together as well as traveling all around the underworld together. "Dad, I need you to train me again," Izuku said, pleading. "So, you wish to get even stronger than your current power?" Tannin asked, happy. "Yes. I realized that the power that I wield could be caught up to if I don't constantly train myself in order to stay ahead of them. I need to get as strong as you or even more powerful than you. Also, I would like to talk to you about a certain dragon that has been a thorn in my side for a little while," Izuku said, trembling. "Well, since you asked so kindly, I will train you so that you can be as strong as me in my prime as well as fight me as if your power is the same as mine. Until you reach that point, I will be your enemy," Tannin said, smirking. As they flew out to their battleground, Petunia watched as both father and son flew away into the distance, and all she could think was, "I am really glad he came home to us." I missed his innocent personality. 𝗬𝗏𝗃 was doing some paperwork as she was looking over the contracts that her servants had gotten in the month since 𝗬𝗍 and Asia have been transformed into devils. She was very surprised to see that 𝗬𝗍's contracts were null and void compared to others, but at the same time the people had never written a single bad thing about him. In fact, the reviews were all positive about him, stating that when his perverted side gets the better of him it makes them laugh as well as makes him unique. You never find a funny pervert in your life, and it was showing here to her. I just don't understand how he hasn't gotten a single contract, Aquino. Ria sighs as she places the contract information down. Well, maybe they just like his overall presence since he is kind like that, Aquino guessed. I don't know what to say, but every time we do our contract polls, he gets sad about his loss and says that he will do even better the next time. I think he does what he says, but something is getting in the way of his success. Ria said, staring at the good reviews. With 𝗬𝗍 is seen walking around the neighborhood with Asia as they are nearing his home. They needed to celebrate their win at his house, and he was very happy about it. He got an embrace from 𝗵𝗃𝗃, and he was not going to lie, it felt really great. As he neared the house where he lived, he sensed holy energy near his parents and immediately sweat dropped. They were as strong as he was a few days after the defeat of 𝗧𝗏, and he didn't think he could defend his parents as well as Asia against them all alone. He runs towards his home and slams the door open, calling his parents' names as his mother comes out of the kitchen with some tea. 𝗬𝗏𝗃, how are you doing, dear? Come over to the living room, your childhood friend has returned. 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗃 said, smiling. Ooh. 𝗬𝗍 asked, confused. Irina Shidu has returned, 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗘 said, happily as 𝗬𝗍 entered the living room only to see two exorcists with holy swords behind them. He immediately narrowed his gaze on both of them as he lowly growled at them without his parents noticing. 𝗬𝗏𝗃, it's been a few years, hasn't it? A woman with tannish brown hair asked. What are you talking about? Who are you? 𝗬𝗍 asked in concern. 𝗵𝗃𝗃, I can't believe you can't remember me from when we were kids. The girl said, revealing a photo that shown him and her as kids next to a holy sword behind them on a wall. Irina, I thought you couldn't return to this town. 𝗬𝗍 called out, hugging the girl. I missed this. But what happened to you? Irina asked. He has become a hopeless pervert. I can't believe he managed to get so many lovely ladies so close to him. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 said, laughing at her son's expense. 𝗳𝗏𝗃 joined in on the laughter as his son just whined at them for laughing at his failures. It wasn't long before the blue-haired woman spoke up and interrupting the reunion. I believe that we should leave. We will need to speak to the heads of this territory. The woman said to Irina, whispering. Right, well, Mr./Mrs. 𝗬𝗏𝗃𝗃 and my friend need to leave. We will visit you guys soon enough. Irina said, walking out the door and running off with her friend. Not too much later, 𝗬𝗏𝗃 appears from a magic circle and frets over them for being so close to dangerous exorcists. But 𝗬𝗍 informs her about their reason for being there, to talk to the heads of the territory. 𝗬𝗏 stated that those two will be coming to the ORC tomorrow in order to deal with a very important task in their territory. 𝗬𝗍 and Asia nod their heads as the trio re-enter the house and get ready to head 𝗬𝗱𝗏. Meanwhile, near a church that was turned into rubble, we find our two exorcists. Well, it seems like there was a struggle here. The blue-haired one said. It seemed like the devils got their hands on I will not let them control him anymore. She said, childishly. We need to focus on our mission at the moment. The blue-haired girl said, sitting on a bench. Hey, don't be like that, 𝗬𝗍𝗃𝗃. We just need to purge his evil pieces out of his body and then we can have my 𝗬𝗍 back. Irina said, with heart-shaped eyes. I see. The now-named 𝗬𝗍𝗃𝗃 said, laying down to sleep. We head back to the 𝗬𝗏𝗃 residence where a day had passed, and since the ORC is being cleaned by the staff, they are having their meeting inside 𝗬𝗍's room. He cleared it out of most pawn for Asia's sake as they were sitting on the floor discussing their next move considering the exorcist's presence in the area. Soon 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗃 enters the room as she gives them some snacks as well as picture books about a young 𝗬𝗍 when he was a mere child. I always wondered why he was so perverted, but I think he got it from his father, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 said, giggling like a schoolgirl. Rias and the others looked at 𝗬𝗍's photos as he was extremely embarrassed about them, but one of the groups was focused on one picture in particular. Hey 𝗬𝗍, Do you know what that is? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 asked him. Oh yeah, that is the picture of me and Irene as kids. I can't believe that I thought that she was a boy at that age. 𝗬𝗧𝗍 muses. Well, do you recognize the weapon in the background? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 asks once again. No, nothing comes to mind. What is it? 𝗬𝗧𝗍 asked, curious. That is a holy sword, and to see that it was so close to you at that age, it is really surprising that you survived that day. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 said, staring at the sword. Are you okay, man? You seem like you are having Vietnam flashbacks. 𝗬𝗧𝗍 asked, concerned. No, I'm fine. It might be a dud sword, anyway, forget I asked. 𝗬𝗧𝗍 watched the boy very closely as he seemed out of it for the rest of the night, as he decided to walk home that night. As 𝗬𝗧𝗍 heads to sleep that night, both Asia and Rias fight over who would sleep with him, and it ends with a small TV knocking the poor boy out as both girls were sitting on his seat out on the streets. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 was seen walking around the streets as it was pouring down raining. He was remembering all of his memories of being in a horrible accident that the church created. As he was walking by, he noticed a priest was running to him in fear. Please help me. The man screamed before being killed in front of him. So, you're still around here, devil scum. I never thought that I would get a rematch against you. A crazed priest said, staring at the boy. 𝗲𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗃, never thought that I would be allowed the chance to defeat you. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 said, preparing his sword. As they got into their fighting stances, 𝗲𝗏𝗃 pulls out a holy sword that caused 𝗵𝗃𝗃 to get a look of pure anger. Where did you get that sword? 𝗵𝗃𝗃 yelled. I found it on this priest here. He didn't stand a chance against me though with my Excalibur rapidly. Ha. 𝗲𝗏𝗃 maniacally laughs. They launch at one another as they clash swords, and we see their respective looks. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 seems to be filled with anger as well as sorrow, whilst 𝗲𝗏𝗃 is filled with arrogance as well as joy. Underworld, Dragon's territory. Izuku was seen fighting multiple dragons at once as he was only defending his position from their attacks. He was hit with an ice blast, fire heat wave, earthly rock slam, as well as many others. He was even hit with poison to lower his chances of guarding against this kind of attack. But as the younger drakes were looking into the smoke and debris, they saw a silhouette standing still in it, and it seemed like it did nothing to Izuku. He slowly walked out of the smoke with mere scratches on his body as he moved faster than they could notice as he knocked out the weaker drakes before standing in front of the stronger young dragons. As he stood in front of them, he intimidated them with his mere presence alone as he looked like nothing hurt to him. As the young drakes moved back away from him, they charged their strongest blasts towards him as Izuku got himself into a position to launch his very own attack at them himself. Compassionate meteor blaster. Izuku screamed as a meteor filled with moss and magma was launched from his mouth, heading for the young drakes. All the other younglings had launched their attacks as well, consisting of fire breath, ice breath, as well as electric and poison breath. The attacks collided in the middle as there was a beam struggle between the four young drakes and Izuku. As the young drakes pushed their all into their attack, Izuku just pushed a little harder than them as the blast came back to them, engulfing them in a huge explosion. As the debris cleared from the dust cloud, Izuku saw them on the ground, beaten and bruised as they were knocked out. *huff**, I guess that is all for today, Izuku said, causing the younglings to cheer in happiness. He transforms back into his human form as he walks back to his home with his dragon features out to let his parents know that he won't hide his draconic features from them. He enters his home as he finds his father standing before him at the door. It seems like you have gotten many times stronger in these few days that you've been here, kid. I am proud to call you my son. Your true test of strength will be against your brother tomorrow, Tanin said as he stared into his son's eyes. I will let you know when I am ready for the fight, Dad, Izuku said, moving to his room to rest. I hope he will be ready. He has never trained this strong before, Petunia said, worried. Don't worry about him, Petunia. He will be ready tomorrow for his fight. If he can hold his own against his older brother, then he will be ready to help the Red Dragon Emperor with his training, Tanin said, looking off into the distance. Kuo Academy, Ko Town, Japan. Issei was seen walking to class as Asia and Kaneko told him about Kiba's problems since the battle against 𝗧𝗏𝗧. They had been sent by the Marquis of 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃 in order to take care of the stray devil in an abandoned warehouse near the docks, But it seemed like 𝗵𝗃𝗲 was out of it as he didn't listen to the plan 𝗧𝗏𝗧 had made up in order to kill the stray. His aloofness had nearly gotten 𝗵𝗃𝗁 seriously hurt as he was distracted by the picture 𝗧𝗏𝗧 had of his younger days and the sword behind himself. During this time frame, 𝗧𝗏𝗧 had been getting better at learning how to become a devil himself. In fact, his father had went to the underworld to reveal that he was still alive to the High Council of Devils. The 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗏 family clan was still alive and kicking since 𝗧𝗏𝗧 was now the heir to the clan. But all in all, they were worried about 𝗵𝗃𝗲 more than anything since he hasn't been to school for a couple days. Not only that, but he hasn't answered their calls to him, and that was what was worrying them to the bone. They had exorcists in the area, and they didn't need their friend to go stray to find these holy swords that he hated with his entire being. 𝗧𝗏𝗧 entered his class with Asia as his friends Musutafu and Motohama had walked up to him talking about all things perverted. 𝗧𝗏𝗧 just decided to ignore it as he was more focused on 𝗵𝗃𝗲 and needed to make sure that the pretty knight was alright in the head as well as alright physically. We time skip to later in the day where 𝗧𝗏𝗧 is sitting outside at a cafe when someone who 𝗧𝗏𝗧 wanted to talk to had come up. "Yo, 𝗬𝗧𝗑𝗲. How are you doing?" A light brown-haired male asked him. "Hey 𝗧𝗍, I need your help finding 𝗵𝗃𝗲. He hasn't even answered our messages or calls. I need to make sure that he doesn't go astray." 𝗧𝗏𝗧 said, getting 𝗧𝗍 to look at him. "That's pretty weird for him. He always comes running to 𝗧𝗏𝗧 no matter what. Never saw him like this before. What happened?" 𝗧𝗍 asked. "He saw a picture of a holy sword in my childhood photo of me and my childhood friend 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗔𝗂. Ever since then he was distracted by this sword as well as its destruction." 𝗧𝗏𝗧 said, "Well, I can't help you since I don't know if you didn't hear, but my 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗲 is stricter and stricter, while yours is forgiving and kind. I can't go around and help you on this mission." 𝗧𝗍 said, "Alright, you can leave as I take care of this on my own. I need to just find him around here somewhere." 𝗧𝗏𝗧 said, as 𝗧𝗍 walked away. Before he could get 15 feet away, he was stopped by someone grabbing his shirt, and as he turned around, he found 𝗵𝗃𝗁 sitting there listening to their conversation. "I knew you'd do something like this, Iyase-senpai. I want to hear everything you want to say about this," 𝗵𝗃𝗁 said, moving to 𝗧𝗏𝗧's table. They sat there with 𝗧𝗍 sulking about why he had to be there as 𝗧𝗏𝗧 went over the details of his mission to 𝗵𝗃𝗁 that he told 𝗧𝗍. "I want to help Yuto-senpai as well," 𝗵𝗃𝗁 said, solemnly. "You'd really help me, 𝗵𝗃𝗁?" 𝗧𝗏𝗧 asked, confused. "I may hate your perverted guts, but at the same time I don't wish for Yuto-senpai to go astray," 𝗵𝗃𝗁 said, looking 𝗧𝗏𝗧 in the eyes. "Why am I being brought into this?" 𝗧𝗍 whined. "Because you are needed for my plan to work, 𝗧𝗍," 𝗧𝗏𝗧 said, shocking the boy. "What is your plan in order to find Yuto-senpai anyway?" 𝗵𝗃𝗁 asked. "I only want to find the exorcists, and once we find them, we will get 𝗵𝗃𝗲 to find us." 𝗧𝗏𝗧 said, "Where will we find the exorcists? Shouldn't we find them at the church?" 𝗧𝗍 asked, confused. They had paid for their drinks as they were walking around the town searching for the exorcists. "I still remember what happened after our meeting with the exorcists, as he got worse after we faced off against them," 𝗧𝗏𝗧 said, looking ahead. Flashback: 𝗧𝗏 and company were in the ORC as they awaited the arrival of the exorcists since they had been wanting a meeting with 𝗧𝗏𝗧 in terms of what they will be doing in their territory. "I can't believe that Irina is part of the church and is our enemy," 𝗧𝗏 said sadly. He never wanted to be enemies with Irina. She was his childhood friend. Not only that, but she was his only friend as a child of 6 years old. Before that there was nobody who wanted to be friends with him, and he only met some after he became a pervert. Not too long later the exorcists had arrived at the ORC led by Sona as she gave them directions to the ORC. The exorcists sat on the couch as the meeting began. "So, why are the church sending exorcists into my territory?" 𝗧𝗏𝗧 asked. "We only came here to inform you of our investigation into the area. Not only that, but we needed to make sure that your kind doesn't even get involved into our fight. Someone stole multiple fragments of the holy sword 𝗬𝗏𝗃𝗲, and we need to get them back or destroy them if possible. And it was a fallen angel 𝗂𝗃 who took them," Zenobia said, staring at 𝗧𝗏𝗧. "You make it sound as if I would help them and jeopardize their war between the factions." 𝗧𝗏𝗧 questions. "I am not implying anything. I am merely stating a fact. Your kind don't particularly like holy swords, And I am merely wishing for you to stay out of this. This is our fight, not yours. 𝗬𝗃𝗲 said. Are you threatening me, 𝗵𝘃𝗃𝗃? Риас asked. I don't care if I have to kill the little sister of the Lucifer. 𝗬𝗃𝗲 stated, getting hostile. Hey, 𝗬𝗃𝗲, we don't need to start a fight with them. This is their territory anyway, we just need their permission to operate inside their territory. Irina said as the voice of reason. Well, in order to make sure you stay out of this, how about a friendly match to see who is stronger? A voice called out from the door of the ORC. As soon as everyone noticed the voice, they looked up to find 𝗵𝗃𝗲 standing there with a scowl on his face staring at the exorcists. I come back from trying to wrap my head on this and I see 2 exorcists in our territory. Not only that, but 2 𝗧𝗵𝗲s in front of me. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 said. 𝗵𝗃𝗲. Риас said, happy that he is back. I don't see why not. We can even make sure that you stay out of our way. 𝗬𝗃𝗲 said. Make sure to respect your elders. I am your senpai in terms of holy swords. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 taunted. You're from the Holy Sword Project. The only survivor. 𝗬𝗃𝗲 said, surprised. I will destroy all holy swords that have the power of Excalibur. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 said, staring into the girl's eyes. The group is now in a field as 𝗳𝗍 and 𝗵𝗃𝗲 are facing off against the church exorcists. Careful, ISE senpai might do something perverted. Kaneko stated. What the hell, Kaneko? I wasn't going to do anything of the sort. 𝗳𝗍 said, blushing. You never know with you. Kaneko said bluntly. 𝗳𝗍 then had a blue aura over his head as he was sad about wheat. She said. Don't worry, 𝗳𝗍. I will purge your perverted side out of your body. Irina said as she got into a fighting stance. What is the chances of 𝗳𝗍 winning? Риас asked Aquino. It's strong to tell. He was as strong as Riser in our battle against him a few weeks ago. Not only that, but he has been training non-stop ever since then. He didn't like how you were forced into that marriage. Aquino said. As they watched 𝗵𝗃𝗲 launch attack after attack to the blue-haired girl and kept missing. 𝗳𝗍 was moving too fast for Irina as he kicked her in the back before slamming his fist into her stomach as she landed into the ground. As 𝗳𝗍 lands on the ground, a 𝗬𝗃𝗲 passes by his face as he barely dodges the attack. Didn't take you for someone who was into Irina. 𝗳𝗍 quipped, causing the poor girl to blush at the implications. While this happened, 𝗳𝗍 appeared behind her and hit her pressure point on her nape of the neck, knocking her out. As this happened, 𝗳𝗍 turned to find 𝗵𝗃𝗲 taken down pretty easily by the blue-haired woman. He also didn't waste time to watch her movements as well as her melons at the moment, since they were 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗲 in the air as she slammed her sword into the ground. As the sword hit the ground, a large earthquake happened, causing 𝗵𝗃𝗲 to lose balance as he was hit in the gut with the side of the sword, knocking out all the air in him and forcing him to the ground. As 𝗬𝗃𝗲 looked over at 𝗳𝗍, she saw Irina knocked out on the ground as 𝗳𝗍 was staring at her, mainly her 𝗧𝗍. I will purge your soul if you continue to look at me lecherously, she said, causing 𝗳𝗍 to shake his head and get into a fighting stance. Before they could continue though, Риас called the match as a draw as the exorcists left the area to search for their swords. Flashback over. 𝗳𝗍 shuddered. Never before had he been threatened like that by a woman, and for some reason, he felt some lust because of it. It was really weird for him. As they continued on the road, they found the exorcists on the street begging for some spare money as they were hungry. You can't be serious. Kaneko stated, sweat dropping. 𝗳𝗍 and 𝗧𝗍 were sweat dropping as well as staring at the sight in front of them as people actively avoided them as 𝗳𝗍 walked up to them. Some time later we find 𝗳𝗍, Kaneko, and 𝗧𝗍 at a table with the exorcists eating all they can as they were stuffing their faces full of food. I never thought that they would be this hungry. 𝗳𝗍 thought to himself. Pigs. Kaneko thought to herself. This is the exorcists that defeated 𝗵𝗃𝗲. They are more like women to me, and I can't help but feel attracted to them. 𝗧𝗍 thought to himself. As soon as they finished their food, they began to speak. To think we accepted help from a devil. We cannot allow this to be heard back at the church. Irina said, causing 𝗳𝗍 to be offended. Hey, I wasted 30,000 yen on you. 𝗳𝗍 called out. So why do you wish to work with us? 𝗬𝗃𝗲 asked. We wish to help you destroy one of the Excaliburs. 𝗳𝗍 said. Stunning Irina. I can see why you wish to help us. 𝗬𝗃𝗲 said. 𝗬𝗍𝗂𝗧, you can't be seriously accepting their help? Irina asked, a little surprised and furious. Irina, our chance of survival and heading back to the church is lower than 30%. If we get all the help, that increases our odds of survival against this evil. 𝗬𝗍𝗂𝗧 said. Do you accept our help? 𝗧𝗍 asked. Yes, but is there anyone else you plan on bringing with you? 𝗬𝗍𝗂𝗧 asked. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗏. He wants the swords destroyed, but I think we can make him happy if he can destroy one of the swords. 𝗧𝗍 said, getting 𝗬𝗍𝗂𝗧's permission. They meet at a fountain in the middle of town where 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗀 was waiting for them to arrive. As soon as they did, 𝗧𝗍 explained his plan to the knight. I see, if I can even destroy even one sword, I will be at least able to rest easy, 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗏 said, staring at the 𝗧𝗧𝗪. But why am I working with them? He asked, angrily. Hey, we didn't want to work with you as well, but the more the merrier, right? Irina asked, a little frustrated. I will only tolerate working with you, 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗏 said. Is there anyone else that knows about the Excaliburs? 𝗧𝗍 asked. Freed 𝗧𝗪𝗀. He was wielding one the night I found out about the holy sword in your photo, 𝗧𝗍. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗏 said. That 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗔 is still here? 𝗧𝗍 groaned, getting the 𝗧𝗧𝗪𝗧 attention. What happened between you and Freed? Irina asked. He tried many times to kill us, not that it worked. But he nearly raped Asia in front of me one night as I was on a contract run. 𝗧𝗍 said, sighing heavily. If Freed was in this fight too, then that means if he has an Excalibur too, then he will be many times more dangerous. They soon then head out on their own ways in order to prepare for their search for them. Underworld, Dragon's territory. Izuku stood in front of Shigaraki as they got into a fighting stance in their hybrid transformation of human form and half-dragon transformation. I will enjoy this fight, little brother, Shigaraki said, chuckling. I will show you the efforts of my training to get stronger. And I will make sure that you are defeated by me. Izuku said, as wind blew all around him and Shigaraki as their hair flowed with it. It brought a memory of their second meeting in their old world. When Shigaraki had exited the J.A.K.A. hospital, with white hair as he was still undergoing the transfusion of getting all for one from All for One. As soon as they stared off, they disappeared into the air, launching punches and kicks at the other as they went blow for blow. As they are fighting, Izuku landed a blow on Shigaraki, sending him flying into a mountain in the distance. He lands on the ground in their training ground as he waits for Shigaraki to return there. He knows that he is many times stronger than him, but he only wishes for an honorable battle, like a true dragon. There is an explosion as Shigaraki flies towards Izuku at high speed, with Izuku reciprocating the same. They meet in the middle of the sky as they clash their fists against one another as a bright flash is seen in the sky. Izuku and Shigaraki flew all over the sky as they launched punches and kicks at one another as they had been fighting for 9 hours straight. Shigaraki may be stronger than Izuku, but he was not as smart as him, which Izuku had been taking advantage of the entire time. He sends a bunch of explosive blasts towards Izuku as he dodges them before kicking the last one to Shigaraki's head, sending him to the ground. As Izuku walks over to him, he starts to run as Shigaraki gets back up and runs towards Izuku as well. This fight gains the attention of the other dragons as they are watching two brothers duke it out. Tanin is overseeing the fight as he wants to see how far Izuku has come from their first week training together. So far, he can say that Izuku's come a long way from being the weak dragon that he was, now being on par with Shigaraki in terms of power as well as might. That doesn't mean that Shigaraki had stopped training as well. He had been training since Izuku left for the human world. They launch their attacks to one another. When their blasts connect, the entire area is shown a bright light. As Izuku and Shigaraki stared at one another, a memory to both of them of their world came back to them. It was of their happiest moment of their previous lives as they remembered it best. For Shigaraki, it was training to become the next symbol of evil as well as meeting his friends in the League of Villains. For Izuku, his happiest moment was when he made the friends in Yui Academy, as he had been terribly scared of making any kind of connections with anyone. He also saw the moment that his mother defended him from others and how she loved him. As soon as the memory ended, Izuku had tears in his eyes. It was as if this memory hit him the hardest, as he never thought he would ever see her again. But as the memory continued as he fought Shigaraki in their draconic forms, He heard his mother's voice talking to him in the kindest tone he ever could hear it. It was as if she was there with him as he continued to cry. "I am so proud of you, Izuku. I can't believe you managed to show everyone that you could become a hero. I am so sorry that I never gave you the chance to try to become one. I am a failure of a parent since I never saw your suffering at the hands of Katsuki. I can only hope that wherever you are now you are getting the love as well as attention you deserve. Also, if you meet any girls, make sure to give me many grandbabies," Izuku's mother said, her voice disappearing slowly. "Don't go. I can't stand being without you, Mom. I don't want to be all alone again. Please." Izuku screamed in his mind. As this was going on inside Izuku's mind, Tannen was watching the fight with fervor as well as concern. Shigaraki as well as Izuku had gotten emotional during the fight as Shigaraki smiled happily, more happily than he had ever done since he came to this world. Not only that, but on his face was the look of content and peace. Now Izuku was another story entirely. His face was filled with emotions that could cause him to get distracted, but the only thing that worried him the most was the tears coming out of his eyes, as well as the dazed look in them as if remembering a memory. Tannen knew that anything could happen to a dragon to make them become an evil dragon, but the most important factor to becoming one was sadness. Eternal sadness. The only way that happened was if his mate was killed and he felt it, or he was so distraught about something that his mind would effectively change his body to acclimate to it. "Please don't lose yourself to your memory. I need to make sure that you don't become an evil dragon," Tannen thought to himself, watching as Izuku's emotions go all over the place. Back to the fight of the brothers in arms, Izuku was attacking Shigaraki relentlessly, and Shigaraki was beginning to notice that Izuku's movements were getting sloppy for some reason. But as soon as he looked into Izuku's dazed look, he noticed something wrong. It was as if he wasn't all there at the moment. As soon as they parted from each other, they stared at one another in the air as they regained their breath. Shigaraki stared at Izuku for a little longer before slowly moving closer to him as Izuku's eyes filled up with even more tears than before. It was as if he was reliving an eternal nightmare. Within the confines of Izuku's mind, we find him in his purest form, a small child, as he was crying over the loss of his mother, as the memory played itself over and over again as he watched his mother get torn apart by the villains that attacked Yui. He watched as her arms were pulled off to prevent a struggle, as he couldn't do anything but watch as they did unspeakable acts to her. As he was watching these happen, he was shown his last stand against Shigaraki as well as him attempting to save him from the path that he was on. Shigaraki had gotten close to him as Izuku stared off into the distance as if he was looking at something, but it was the faraway look in his eyes that made him look eerie. As Shigaraki slapped Izuku on the head to see what would happen, Izuku's body reacted on instinct as it grabbed his hand before he could retract it and threw him in the ground like a judo martial artist. As Shigaraki stood up from the ground, there was seemingly no damage on him as he slowly moved closer to the boy. In the mindscape, Izuku stared off into the distance as he watched his friends launch a surprise attack on him, and it goes through his CT, hitting Shigaraki in the CT as well. As it killed Shigaraki instantly, Izuku with his pure willpower managed to survive long enough to make sure that nobody got the quirk one for all. He watched as his friends moved closer to him as they started to apologize to his dead corpse as he slowly was taken away from the world. The only ones who seemingly seemed most hurt by his death was Uraraka, Tsuyu, as well as Tokoyami. And they didn't even talk much together since they were always apart from one another and in their own friend groups. As Izuku watched them cry over his death, he thought the most distraught person there would have been Katsuki, but all he did was lord over the fact that he couldn't even become a full hero. Not only that, but he then stated how he took the girl he liked, Uraraka, and already popped her cherry before he could do it himself. It was as if he was crazy from the beginning and that the apology he gave him during his rounds as a vigilante was just a front. But that was for later, because he noticed something in the distance like untapped power that he could release, but it needed a trigger. As soon as he reached out to it, though, all of his worst memories came flooding out as his face on the outside of his mindscape was hit with all kinds of emotions, where it ranged from betrayal and sadness to anger and hatred. But most of all, the closest thing that happened was the loss of something or someone very close to him as well as someone he loved. And that caused a snap in his mind as on the outside he became shocked for a mere moment as he started to grit his teeth and powered up. Shigaraki watched on from afar as he smirked in happiness as well as the thrill of the fight. Izuku was getting even stronger, and they could continue to train and get stronger together. Although there was something wrong with this transformation as Izuku's skin color became a full tan-colored in terms of skin color, but his eyes had become more reptilian as well as a deeper shade of hazel. Not to mention that his hands as well as tail had become more stronger as well as a deeper shade of emerald. His power soared into the heights of ultimate class devils as well as 𝗬𝗲 class beings. But the most notifying part about him was the emerald sparks of electricity that were surrounding his form. It was as if this new form was an evolution of his normal state. His hair was spiked up and had taken a hue of a more teal color as well as a light blue as it spiked up. Energy was seen flowing out of his eyes as he stared at Shigaraki in preparation for their last fight. It was all down to this last punch. They launched at one another as they pulled their fists back, and as soon as they launched their attacks on the other, an explosion had erupted from their attack. Everyone felt the power of the attack in the underworld. It was as strong as Azazel's full-power energy beam. The smoke and debris moved out of the way to show that Izuku and Shigaraki were knocked out, but Izuku was the only one standing with his fist up in the air as Shigaraki was out cold on the ground. "You have made me proud, Izuku. Make sure that you get enough rest to return to your friends," Tanin thought to himself. Days later, Izuku woke up in his room as he looked around. He found Petunia there standing over him with a look of worry on her draconic face. "You should be resting now. I know that you remembered something in your fight with your brother. You can talk to me, you know," she said softly. Thank you," Izuku said, looking away for a moment, before looking back at her. "I remembered something from my world," Izuku began. Petunia stood there thoughtfully as she waited for him to continue and continue. He did. He told her about his life in that world, from his quirklessness status from the doctor to his best friend's betrayal, to his meeting of the #1 hero, to his meeting of his classmates as well as to his first meeting with Shigaraki of their world. And then about what happened during that time until he came to this world. She heard it all as Izuku was reduced to tears as he remembered how his mother died, and it was really graphic. Petunia hugged him as he cried in her seat. He was her baby Drake, and she knew that he had thoughts of what would happen if she was taken before he could get a mate. But she decided to make sure that he was all right in the head first. As soon as he said that he was okay, she let him go. "You need to head back to Kuo Academy. Your friends are in danger, Izuku," Petunia said, causing him to go stiff. He got up immediately and made his way over to the door of the home, and as he turned to look at her, he ran back and hugged her one more time as he stated his thanks for taking care of him ever since he was born. She merely nodded her head as he disappeared from the underworld, making his way to Kuo Town as fast as he could. Kuo Town. Izuku arrived in Kuo Town as he noticed a barrier over the school. He got up off the ground and formed his wings and flew over to the school, secretly thanking the gods that nobody was awake as of this moment. Once he arrived, he found Sona as well as her peerage holding the barrier up as they made sure that whatever was inside didn't get out. But they were running low on energy as they couldn't keep the magic barrier up for long. He slowly walked to the barrier and walked inside of it and saw the chaos inside of it. Kiba was fighting a priest who wielded a holy sword amalgamation from Excalibur. Issei was powering up to give his power to Rias and Akino since they had more magical power than he did. As Izuku entered the barrier, the fallen angel in the sky made notice of Izuku's arrival, not known as he wished to see who the new arrival was. As Izuku hid his power, he made sure to wait till the last moment in order to make his presence known to everyone. It was the best thing he could do since Kiba defeated the priest. He made his way over to Kokobile and was getting ready to fight him as Issei continued to grow in power up to his max. Even the blue-haired woman from Izuku's perspective had begun to fight the fallen cadre. He knew that something was off since Asia had lost the will to fight and could only guess one thing happened. The reveal of God's death during the Great War between the three factions. As it became close to Kokobile getting ready to kill everyone, he threw his powered-up spear towards Issei as everyone told him to run. But as soon as it came in close contact to Issei, it was kicked away like it was nothing. Izuku had arrived at the battlefield, and he was not happy. He stared off at the fallen cadre as the cadre looked at him in either disgust or disbelief that he managed to toss away his attack. So, you're the one I sensed enter the barrier, that Leviathan's little sister who is keeping the barrier up? 𝗂𝗵𝗃 said, staring curiously. Izuku then disappeared from view as he stood in front of 𝗂𝗵𝗃 and kicked him into the ground. 𝗂𝗵𝗃 couldn't even see him coming until he was already in front of him. Izuku needed to defeat this 𝗵𝘃𝗲𝗍 before he could even think about destroying the area as well as starting another war. So, before 𝗂𝗵𝗃 could do another thing, he kicked the fallen into the air as he appeared behind him and slammed him into the ground as 𝗂𝗵𝗃 had coughed in pain. The butt whooping continued as everyone watched in shock and awe at Izuku's power. Izuku was really tossing the 𝗂𝗧𝗟 around like a rag doll, and there wasn't even a thing that 𝗂𝗵𝗃 could do. But eventually he caught himself and launched a light spear at Izuku, who caught it and threw it back at him extremely fast as it tore right through his upper left teeth. 𝗂𝗵𝗃 coughed BLD out. Izuku appeared in front of him again and stuck his hand into the fallen's teeth and grabbed his heart and pulled it out of his body. Gah! 𝗂𝗵𝗃 cried out in pain. Izuku then grabbed his body and launched it into the air as he touched down on the ground as he charged a powerful blast that would incinerate him completely. Complete annihilation. Destructive dragon's roar. Izuku screamed as his hands gained a magic circle, as it was similar to a show that Issei had seen. It had the look of a snowflake as it showed that it was extremely dangerous. Then a dark green orb of power appeared coming out of the magic circle and began to grow in size. Then it was released as a beam of energy towards the body of 𝗂𝗵𝗃 as it engulfed the fallen 𝗂𝗧𝗟 completely and blasted the barrier away from Sona's peerage. What the hell just happened? Tsuji screamed. I don't know, but this can't be the power of Rias's pawn, can it? Tsubaki asked, completely concerned. Sona stared at the color of the beam and noticed its emeraldish blue color scheme. Not to mention that it had other colors in it, as well as it had red, purple, yellow, pink, as well as white on the outline of the blast. This wasn't Hyudu's power, this was Izuku's power. He has returned to the town. Sona said, smirking. We enter the school grounds as we look around the area of the blast, and it is revealed to be Izuku in his hybrid transformation as he stared at the area 𝗂𝗵𝗃 once was at. He was secretly glad that he didn't take it easy on the 𝗵𝘃𝗲𝗍, since he could have escaped to live another day. Izuku stared at the others as he announced his presence. Hey guys. Long time no see. Izuku said, smiling. As the battle subsided, Izuku stared at the others as they were staring at him in shock at how he defeated a 𝗂𝗧𝗟 class being quite easily. He walked over to Asia in order to make sure that she was all right and moved closer to her to check her pulse. She was alive as well as just passed out from the shock of the reveal 𝗂𝗵𝗃 told her, but he didn't know that. He went over to Rias in order to ask what the hell just happened. Izuku, how are you here? Weren't you training with Tannen? Rias asked, confused. I finished my training yesterday, but I heard about what was happening from my mother as she keeps tabs on you all. So, what the hell happened? Izuku asked, angrily. 𝗂𝗵𝗃 had taken the swords of Excalibur from the church and tried to fuse the pieces together in order to create the original sword from the legend. But after finding out that Archbishop 𝗵𝘃𝗲𝗚 had tried to use the power, he had to combine them and failed. 𝗵𝗃 was the one to destroy the sword with his balance breaker of holy darkness. Zenobia revealed that she wields the holy sword Durandal as she tried to fight both Excalibur as well as 𝗂𝗵𝗃 with it. 𝗵𝗃 tried to fight him as well, but it didn't work for either of them, and then you showed up taking care of 𝗂𝗵𝗃 without even try. Rias said, before getting interrupted by someone. So, this is the Red Dragon Emperor. How disappointing. The voice called out from the sky in a white set of armor. So, you have shown yourself, White One. 𝗧𝗪𝗏 called out. So, you're the White Dragon Emperor. I never knew Azazel let you out yet. I thought you were on a mission to the Egyptians. Izuku stated. I never stated that my mission was complete from Azazel, he just called my back in order to bring 𝗂𝗵𝗃 in. But it seems like I was too late. He said, carelessly as if he didn't care. Well, he did almost destroy a town, inciting a war between the three factions again. Izuku said, before Albion called out to 𝗧𝗪𝗏. It seems we meet again, 𝗧𝗪𝗏. Although it seems that I have the stronger possessor. Albion called out. It does seem so, but I will have you know that he is very close to achieving Balance Breaker and will provide the fight you want so much. 𝗧𝗪𝗏 called out. We will fight you soon, Red One, but it will be later. for we have better things to do as of right now. Albion called out as the White Dragon Emperor left the scene. So that happened. What do you all say we hit the sack after cleaning up? 𝗧𝗍𝗧 said, getting chuckling from everyone. Getting some sleep does sound nice right about now. Zenobia said, walking away. Is there anything else I need to know, 𝗬𝗧? Izuku asked, looking at her sternly. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 announced to us that not only did the previous 4 Satans die in the Great War, but God was killed as well. 𝗬𝗧 said, looking down. Well, I guess even he wasn't immortal. But you live and you lose if I do say so myself. Izuku said, mumbling. Why don't you care? 𝗧𝗍𝗧 asked, clearly confused. I came from a world where he was a myth, a religion, and not a real being. If anything, the fact that he died in battle doesn't even faze me at all. He died a warrior, and that is all that matters to us dragons. Izuku explained. As even 𝗧𝗍𝗧 had to admit that being killed by either 𝗧𝗍𝗧 or Albion were badass ends compared to being killed by a fallen angel on a date. So, we need to clean up this place and wait for the leaders to come here. It's about time for a peace treaty between the factions. Izuku said, confusing most of the people present. Oh, come on, you have got to think about the future. We aren't going to stay as enemies forever, right? Izuku asked, bewildered. I see where he is coming from. I mean, no more battles between the 3 factions means more of a happy life for all of us, right? 𝗧𝗍𝗧 asked, receiving nods of approval from the girls. Izuku did notice that Zenobia was looking a little down about the death of God. But he decided to leave that to 𝗬𝗧 and the others. That was their problem. He already had a problem, and that was tending to the girls of his life's tensions. No, he was not going to have 𝗧𝗍𝗧 with them, but should they wish for it, he will accept their feelings as well as make sure that they are given the love they deserve. But that is beside the point. He has 2 most likely very angry girls that want his attention right now, and he needs to make sure that he isn't sleeping in the doghouse tonight. As he got home, he found Murayama on the couch asleep as well as 𝗧𝗧𝗧 on the couch with her. They were hugging one another as they were seemingly dreaming about him. Izuku found a blanket and placed it on their bodies as he went to sleep on the floor as he transformed into a smaller dragon in order to keep the warmth on them. The next morning Izuku woke up with both girls in his arms as they were snuggling to his 𝗧𝗧𝗧 as they had blushes on their faces. In order to escape the doghouse, he needed to do something kind to them in order to make sure he is on good terms with them. So, he decided to make some breakfast and left a note stating that they will all 3 goes on a date in a couple days but not before the meeting between the 3 factions. It was a really important meeting that he needed to attend as one of the protectors of Kuo, and he was basically a bodyguard for 𝗬𝗧 as well as Sona. He was also the trainer of 𝗧𝗍𝗧 as he was the holder of the Red Dragon Emperor. The day continued on for Izuku as he entered the school grounds as he sensed the power of Azazel nearby as his thoughts of what was happening was right on point. Not to mention that the parents coming to see their kids in school was coming up in a few days and he needed to be ready to have his mother and father arrive in their human forms. He was ready to fight a cadre class being and could fight them to the death, but he was not ready for his mother, father and brother to come and cheer him on in class. He had a lot to do in this week, and it was all started because an idiot in the fallen angels' ranks had decided to try and start a war in the 3 factions all because he was bored. Izuku also noticed that 𝗧𝗍𝗧 had been dealing with 𝗬𝗧's brother as well since he had decided to stay at the younger male's home in order to be prepared for the meeting. Hey man, are you doing alright? Izuku asked. Yeah, man, I never thought 𝗵𝗃𝗀's brother would be that intense as well as give me advice on how to get stronger. 𝗧𝗍𝗧 said, smirking lustfully. Your perverted side is showing, Izuku said, causing the boy to sputter out and blush. Their day continued as 𝗧𝗧𝗧 had come to the ORC in order to give 𝗬𝗧 a command as the leader of their faction. 𝗬𝗧, I am your leader and I deem you ready to release your second bishop? He said, confusing everyone. Are you really sure, brother? 𝗬𝗧 asked. If he trusts in your ability to be able to control his powers, then I believe that you can too, 𝗵𝗃𝗀, 𝗧𝗍𝗧 said, smiling. With his presence now known, 𝗧𝗧𝗧 had looked at him as well. Well, it seems the heir to the 𝗳𝗏𝗄 clan has arrived and is working for my sister no less. Although your father had stated that he doesn't like your perverted attitude, he wasn't any less than you when he was your age. 𝗧𝗧𝗧 said. Wait, you know about my heritage? 𝗳𝗏𝗃 asked, confused. Your father came to the underworld and explained it to me and the other devil kings. He was really amazing to gain our trust. But if anything, the elders still look down on you for your mixed heritage. 𝗧𝗏𝗃 said. I know, and I won't let it get to me. 𝗧𝗏𝗃 said, smirking. Well, since that is happening, is anyone going to tell me why Azazel was near the school? Izuku asked. He has been getting close to the school since we are holding the meeting here at said school. In fact, we are going to be holding the meeting in the floor above us currently. 𝗧𝗏𝗃 said, dropping the bomb. Well, that explains why the 3 faction leaders are trying to be as close to this place as possible without trying to alert each other of their presence. The only one not even trying to hide yourself is you, 𝗧𝗏𝗃. Izuku said, nodding. I see. Well, I will see you all during the meeting in 3 days. Izuku, I believe your father still wishes to train you to get as strong as him or even more powerful. You will need to meet him again before the trip to Kyoto. 𝗧𝗏𝗃 said, walking away. I will train to the best of my ability, 𝗧𝗏𝗃. I will make you proud. As I will make my parents proud as well. Izuku said, with his fist in the air. You know, since you were betrayed by your friends and the heroes of your world, you would think that you'd give up on the hero life. 𝗧𝗏𝗃 said, not trying to be rude. Nothing will stop me from wanting to save someone with a smile on my face. And it wasn't my MSDR's decision to have me killed off with Shigaraki. It was those that I called my friends. I don't blame them either, although I will blame my childhood friend and bully for most likely bringing the 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗃 part in. I have always known he hated me for some reason. Izuku said, walking away. But there was something off about him in this moment. He wasn't smiling. He was actually frowning as he was reliving memories that he didn't want to relive. He left the room without a word while Kaneko stated, You're the worst, you know. She said, causing 𝗧𝗏𝗃 to cringe. Outside the school grounds, Izuku was walking around the neighborhood as he was looking at the scenery. He loved how 𝗏𝗃 was so quiet as well as calm on most days, since the people here loved each other as well as made sure that they knew one another since they all talked to each other. He sat down in a park that was familiar to him as he remembered his first date with Murayama and how his journey started with helping 𝗧𝗏𝗃 become the best Red Dragon Emperor. Although he was a massive pervert, he was making ground on him losing most of it and use it whenever he is with his girls alone. He didn't even expect to see another girl sitting next to him looking at the scenery. She had black long hair with a kitten hairpin in her hair. She had a buxom figure that was leaning more to the curvy as well as busty look. The most eye-catching thing about her was the fact that she had the most alluring eye color to him. The eye color of this woman was a hazel gold, and they allured him that there was more than meets the eye with her. But most of all, she had the aura of a killer, and a not-so-clean one too, but there was also a lingering sadness on it as well. She feared that she scared someone close to her and felt as though she killed someone close to her with her actions. She took on someone. So, he looked at her in the eyes and took her beauty in as she stared back at him with a smirk. Look what the dragon brought in. I never thought that I'd see a full-on dragon in 𝗏𝗃. The woman smirked at him. I never thought that I'd see a 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗃 here either, but I've met Kaneko-chan, so that is a given. Izuku said, causing the girl to stiffen up. Her name is Chiron. And how did you know what we are? She asked, now very cautious about him. You do realize that I am a dragon, right? I can literally smell the type of supernatural being you are from smelling your aroma. And I gotta say, you smell like BLD as well as oddly peaches. Izuku said, blushing a little. She stared at him for a little moment before laughing at his retort as he joined in on her as well. It wasn't often that he could get others to laugh with his retorts. They usually just give up before actually leaving him. My name is Kuroka. What's yours, Dragon-kun? The now-named Kuroka asked. My name is Izuku, and it's nice to meet you, Kuroka. Izuku said, getting up and stretching. Well, I have somewhere to be. Could I get your number? Izuku asked. She gave it to him before leaving in a magic circle as well. So my guess was right. I was speaking out of my own butt. But not about the peaches part. She really smelled like peaches bathed in BLD. It was really nice. Izuku said, walking home.